Chapter 2357. What? Mu Wenyang was stunned when he heard Lin Tian's words. Regain my freedom? He didn't know how long it had been since he was captured to this place. When he was first captured, he did think of regaining his freedom and leaving this place. However, reality was cruel. With his cultivation suppressed by the immortal confinement shackles, he didn't have any hope of leaving this place. Gradually, he gave up all hope and stopped thinking about such a ridiculous and extravagant thing like regaining his freedom. However, Lin Tian asked him if he had ever thought about regaining his freedom one day. Young man, stop dreaming. Once you've been captured here, you'll never be able to regain your freedom. He looked at Lin Tian and sighed. If someone can really let me regain my freedom, I'll be willing to do anything in the future. As he spoke, he looked at the other hundreds of slaves in this mining area and said, They should be the same as me. Don't give up hope. Lin Tian smiled. Suddenly, there was a tearing sound in the air and a buzzing sound. A whip with sharp teeth lashed out like a flying snake. Lin Tian immediately moved a few feet away and avoided the whip. He looked in the direction where the whip came from. The person holding the whip at that spot was the yellow-clothed man who had captured Lin Tian. His whip missed and his gaze involuntarily became a little cold as he looked at Lin Tian. Holding the whip, he arrived in front of Lin Tian in the blink of an eye and sent a slap towards Lin Tian. How dare you slack off and dodge? I'll let you dodge! This slap was aimed at Lin Tian's cheek. Obviously, the yellow-clothed man intended to humiliate Lin Tian with this. Lin Tian moved sideways and avoided the slap. He used his elbow to hit the man's abdomen. Immediately, with a bang, the yellow-clothed man flew dozens of feet away and crashed into the ground, causing a large crack to appear. Moreover, there were specks of blood floating in the air. At this moment, although he had not used the stone seal to break free from the immortal shackles on his hands and feet and his cultivation base was still sealed, his physical body was not affected. Even though he did not use all of his physical strength, and the yellow-robed man was a cultivator from the fifth dimension, he was still injured by this strike. Such a scene instantly shocked everyone present. Everyone in the mining area turned to look at them. Senior brother! The expressions of the early-stage profound heaven realm watchers from the same sect as the yellow-robed man all changed as they rushed toward the yellow-robed man. At the same time, Mu Wenyang looked at Lin Tian with a pale face. Young man, are you crazy? After being captured and sealed by the immortal shackles, Lin Tian only had the physique of a profound heaven realm cultivator. Yet he dared to attack the yellow-robed man who was in charge of this place. This was something more terrifying than death. This was because there had been slaves who had failed to commit suicide who had done the same thing. They had purposely attacked the people of this sect, hoping to use this method to let the people of this sect kill them and free themselves. However, the consequences were crueler than death. The people of this sect did not kill the slaves who went against them or attacked them. Instead, they tortured them mercilessly. After that, no other slave dared to do that. All the slaves would rather die than suffer such inhumane torture. At the same time, most of the other hundreds of slaves also saw this scene. Many of their expressions changed like Mu Wenyang's. Even the eyes of those who were originally dull and numb couldn't help but ripple. Lin Tian smiled without the slightest fear. It was also at this time that the yellow-robed man was helped up by a group of early-stage profound immortal disciples. His face was flushed red as he pushed away the people who helped him up. He looked at Lin Tian with a ferocious expression and walked toward Lin Tian step by step. I'll make you wish you were dead! He stared at Lin Tian with eyes full of ferocity. He had actually been sent flying by a slave that he had captured here, in front of all his junior brothers. How could he keep his face? Lin Tian's expression didn't change. He still had a faint smile on his face. So, the higher beings of the fifth dimension can also spit out low-level words like I'm your father. His voice was calm, but the sarcasm in his words was very obvious and thick. Anyone could hear it. When these words came out, Mu Wenyang was so scared that his face turned even paler. Was this young man in front of him completely crazy? In the distance, the other slaves temporarily stopped what they were doing. The other slaves in the dozens of mines also seemed to have sensed that something big had happened outside. One by one, they walked out. Then, they quickly learned about what had happened from some of the slaves who had been outside since the beginning. They all looked at Lin Tian and couldn't help but sigh. When the yellow-robed man heard Lin Tian's words, his expression became even more ferocious. The ferocity in his eyes became even more intense. He didn't say anything else and walked toward Lin Tian step by step. His body was bursting with killing intent, causing the air to tremble. In the blink of an eye, he once again arrived in front of Lin Tian. He directly attacked, ruthlessly grabbing at Lin Tian's throat with his dragon claws. "You dare to attack when senior brother is unprepared! Damn thing! There's no need to be angry with this lowly native. In the future, there will be good things for him to eat. I guarantee that he'll be very satisfied." In the distance, some of the early-stage mysterious immortal realm watchers said cruelly. They didn't even manage the slaves who had come out of the mines at this time and didn't continue mining. They allowed hundreds of slaves to watch from outside the mines. It was as if they were prepared to torture Lin Tian later to let these slaves know what kind of miserable price they would have to pay if they went against them. They wanted these slaves to be more obedient, and not dare to disobey them in the slightest. It was also at this time that the yellow-robed man's dragon claws landed near Lin Tian's neck. It carried a sharp wind. Once it landed on Lin Tian's neck, it would definitely tear apart Lin Tian's neck. Lin Tian's legs were shackled, so it wasn't very convenient. However, it was enough for him to use basic movement. With the strength of his flesh shell, he changed his footsteps and dodged the dragon claws. Then, he used his elbow to hit the yellow-robed man's chest. Bang! Another muffled sound rang out. The yellow-robed man was sent flying again. He directly spat out a large mouthful of blood. It was very eye-catching. "Senior brother!" At this place, a group of early-stage mysterious immortal realm watchers ran toward the yellow-robed man who had been sent flying again. The green-robed man and the yellow-robed man had the same cultivation level. They were in charge of this place together. He couldn't help but frown slightly. Although the yellow-robed man did not use saint energy, and only grabbed Lin Tian with his bare hands, Lin Tian's cultivation level was also suppressed. Moreover, his hands and feet were shackled, so it was inconvenient for him to attack. Even so, the yellow-robed man was sent flying twice by Lin Tian. 2 months ago, Lin Tian was clearly captured by the yellow-robed man, Zhao Jin, and brought here. Now, Zhao Jin was no match for him. Could it be that without using saint energy or divine arts, Lin Tian was stronger than his fellow disciple in terms of pure physical strength and movement techniques? On the other side, the yellow-robed man stood up again at this time. His expression became even more ferocious. He clenched his fists tightly. He was actually injured twice by this lowly creature that he had personally suppressed. "Lowly thing! I want you to kneel before me and kowtow to repent," he said ferociously. As soon as he finished speaking, saint energy surged out of his body with a boom. His saint aura was vast and mighty, and his murderous aura was extremely cold. As soon as such saint aura was released, everyone except the green-robed man trembled in shock. Most of the hundreds of slaves who were restrained by the immortal confinement shackles staggered back. Many of their faces turned pale. This was because these people's cultivation level was at the early stage of the mystic heaven realm. They were far inferior to the yellow-robed man. Moreover, their cultivation level was sealed by the immortal confinement shackles, so they couldn't use saint energy to protect themselves. As a result, they felt very uncomfortable under the yellow-robed man's saint aura. Mu Wenyan was also trembling. Not far from Lin Tian, he was struggling to resist the yellow-robed man's saint aura. "Young man, you! Why do you have to do this? What are you going to do after this?" From the 2 times that Lin Tian sent the yellow-robed man flying, he could see that Lin Tian's physique and movement technique were extraordinary. However, now that the yellow-robed man had used saint energy, how could Lin Tian, whose cultivation level was sealed by the immortal confinement shackles, withstand it? Moreover, Even if his cultivation level wasn't sealed by the immortal confinement shackles, he didn't think that Lin Tian could defeat the yellow-robed man. This was because Lin Tian was captured by the yellow-robed man and the green-robed man. Since he was captured by the yellow-robed man and the green-robed man from the beginning, Lin Tian couldn't defeat them no matter what. The yellow-robed man's face was ferocious. Step by step, he closed in on Lin Tian. His saint aura and murderous aura were growing bit by bit. In the face of such fierce saint aura and murderous aura, Lin Tian's expression didn't change at all. He still had a faint smile on his face. Senior Wenyang, don't sigh. Look forward, the future is still very long. With his back facing Mu Wenyang, he used the stone seal in his sea of consciousness to instantly break the seal on his cultivation level. He shattered the immortal confinement shackles on his hands and feet. I'll take back the freedom that was taken away from you. At the same time, he used the secret technique that his father had left him in the stone seal to break the seal on his soul root. The first seal was broken. The second seal was broken. The third seal was broken. The fourth seal was broken. In the blink of an eye, 4 of the 9 seals that his father had placed on his soul root with supreme means were broken. It was as if a terrifying volcano of potential had erupted in his body. His entire body instantly emitted an immeasurable amount of saint light, which almost drowned the space within a radius of several hundred feet. It was so bright that people couldn't even open their eyes. In the blink of an eye, endless spiritual energy and Tao power surged over from hundreds of thousands of miles away. In this place, the entire Tao Yuan treasure crystal mine glowed. All the Tao spiritual crystals, whether it was the ones that had been dug out and prepared to be brought back to the Golden Mark Immortal Sect, or the ones that had yet to be dug out, all turned into spiritual light and Tao light. Together with the endless spiritual energy and Tao power that surged over from hundreds of thousands of miles away, they continuously rushed into Lin Tian's body. Suddenly, Lin Tian's essence, energy, and spirit rose rapidly. His cultivation level began to increase at an extremely shocking speed. At the same time, the surroundings shook. Immortal palaces and ancient pavilions, continuous sacred mountains, galloping beasts and birds, endless gods, devils, ghosts, and immortals, and the broken universe. Mysterious and terrifying phenomena of heaven and earth appeared in the sky one after another. Heaven and earth shook. Chapter 2358. Strange phenomena appeared one after another, covering the entire sky. They were mysterious and majestic. The scenes of gods, devils, ghosts, and immortals shattering the heavens and earth were too frightening, causing one's soul to involuntarily tremble. The spiritual energy within a radius of several tens of thousands of miles continued to rush over. In this mining area, all the Tao Yuan treasure crystals glowed brightly, turning into spiritual energy that continuously rushed into Lin Tian's body. Boundless light bloomed in this area, stirring up gusts of hurricanes. Such a scene instantly caused the expressions of everyone in this area to change. Mu Wenyang's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Lin Tian had actually shaken off the suppression of the forbidden immortal strike on his own and recovered his cultivation base. Then, he suddenly erupted with such a terrifying aura. Within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles, all the psionic Tao radiance actually surged towards Lin Tian on their own. All the Tao Yuan treasure crystals here actually rushed into Lin Tian's body. The most frightening thing was the strange phenomena that appeared one after another. It was too frightening, causing this middle-aged man, who was at the profound heaven realm, to feel a chill run down his spine. As Lin Tian released his aura, so many strange phenomena appeared. It was as if the entire world was shocked by the strange aura that Lin Tian suddenly released. What exactly was going on? The hundreds of other profound heaven realm slaves all had faces full of shock. Those slaves whose eyes were originally numb and had completely lost all hope in life, at this moment, their eyes twitched violently as they watched this scene unfold before them. At the same time, the yellow-robed man, the azure-robed man, and the dozens of other disciples of the Golden Mark Immortal Sect all changed their expressions. You! The ferocious expression on the yellow-robed man's face completely disappeared at this moment. When he saw this scene, his expression completely changed. He had personally suppressed and captured Lin Tian, and used the immortal forbidding shackles to seal Lin Tian's cultivation. But now, Lin Tian, whose cultivation was sealed by the immortal forbidding shackles, broke the immortal forbidding shackles on his own and completely recovered his cultivation. Then, he emitted such a frightening aura, suddenly triggering so many strange phenomena. He had cultivated for so many years, but he had never seen anyone who could trigger so many strange phenomena at the same time. In fact, he had never even heard of such a thing. Even the divine sons and saintesses of the top orthodoxies in this area were all peerless geniuses, but none of them could do this. This almost scared him to death. You deliberately allowed yourself to be captured by me and brought here?" At this moment, when he saw that Lin Tian could break free from the immortal forbidding shackles on his own and trigger so many strange phenomena, he instantly understood that if this Lin Tian was 2 months ago, he definitely wouldn't have been able to win against this kind of Lin Tian. Then, when he saw that the entire Dao Yuan treasure crystal mine was glowing brightly, turning into spiritual energy, and Dao light that surged into Lin Tian's body, he immediately understood many things. You're thinking about the Dao Yuan treasure crystal mine here?" The hurricane roared, and with this place as the center, endless spiritual energy and Dao power surged madly in a radius of tens of thousands of miles. All the Dao Yuan treasure crystals here glowed brightly and continuously surged into Lin Tian's body, causing Lin Tian's essence, qi, and spirit to rise. "You're not that stupid." Endless light intertwined around his body as he looked at the yellow-clothed man with a faint smile. Then, with his back facing Mu Wenyang, he said, "Senior Wenyang, I'll give you your freedom." With that, he waved his right hand slightly, and more than 900 sword lights shot out, carrying the unique aura of the stone seal in his sea of consciousness. In the blink of an eye, they arrived in front of Mu Wenyang and the other hundreds of slaves, shattering all the immortal forbidding shackles on their hands and feet. The broken shackles fell to the ground, and Mu Wenyang trembled, as did the other 900 profound heaven slaves. At this moment, the 900 slaves could clearly feel that their cultivation base could be used, and their saint power surged. Suddenly, more than 900 terrifying saint power rushed up, turning into more than 900 pillars of light that shot into the sky. Including Mu Wenyang, the 900 slaves were all trembling with excitement. Those whose eyes had been numb at the beginning had completely lost their numbness at this moment, and they couldn't help but have tears in their eyes, completely caused by their extreme excitement. How many years had they been enslaved? They couldn't remember, and they had long given up on their entire lives and all hope. But now, the immortal forbidding shackles that had been suppressing them had been shattered, and their sealed cultivation base had been completely restored. They had regained their freedom on this day. Ah! Someone couldn't help but roar at the sky, venting his emotions. Mixed with excitement. Mixed with grief and indignation. Lin Tian naturally understood how these people felt at this moment, but he didn't pay too much attention to it, and looked at the yellow-clothed man again. Next, endless spiritual power continued to pour into his body. At this moment, he seemed to have turned into a man of light, and his essence, qi, and spirit rose rapidly. His gaze fell on the yellow-clothed man, and he took a simple step forward, instantly appearing in front of the yellow-clothed man. His right hand formed a sword finger, and it landed directly between the yellow-clothed man's eyebrows. "Goodbye." As his words fell, the tip of his finger that landed between the yellow-clothed man's eyebrows emitted a sword light, and with a puff, it pierced through the yellow-clothed man's head, bringing with it a glaring stream of blood. It directly shattered the spirit in the yellow-clothed man's sea of consciousness. The yellow-clothed man's face was still filled with shock and fear, but the luster of life in his eyes was quickly fading, and in the blink of an eye, it disappeared without a trace. Then, with a bang, he fell to the ground, completely dead. Senior brother! At this place, the other ordinary disciples of the Golden Mark Immortal sect were all trembling, and many of them couldn't help but tremble. Their senior brother, who was at the peak of the profound heaven realm, was actually killed by a single blow. Moreover, it was someone from the lower realm. Even the green-clothed man couldn't help but tremble at this moment. Looking at the yellow-clothed man's corpse and Lin Tian, who was surrounded by endless light, his eyes were filled with horror. He immediately turned around, and quickly fled into the distance. His strength was on the same level as the yellow-clothed man. Now that the yellow-clothed man was killed so easily, how could he possibly stop Lin Tian? At this moment, he was very clear about the situation in this place. Other than running away, he had no other choice. A hurricane swept across, and spiritual light continuously surged out. Lin Tian clenched his fists, and a bright light intertwined in his eyes. Changed! He muttered to himself. As he continuously undid the first 4 seals on his soul root, he could feel the changes in his body at this moment. In his senses, the entire world had become incomparably clear, and everything in his field of vision had become incomparably simple. It was as if he could instantly understand all the principles of the world. Even though his cultivation hadn't changed much, he could clearly feel that his fighting strength had become 100 times stronger in the blink of an eye after he undid the first 4 seals on his soul root. More importantly, his physique was constantly changing at this moment. Although the essence of his reincarnation body hadn't changed, as his soul energy intertwined with every inch of his flesh, an indescribable and terrifying power gradually appeared in his flesh. It was as if the destructive beasts that had been hibernating in his soul energy had awakened at this moment, and then moved to every inch of his flesh. It was as if he could destroy everything in this world with just a slight move. Whoosh! The sound of something breaking through the air was vast and mighty. At this time, the man in green had fled extremely far away, and had turned into a black dot. Lin Tian looked up, and his expression didn't change at all. In the next moment, there was a sudden explosion in the sky, and a black lightning bolt came crashing down like a destructive dragon. Ah! A scream came from afar, and there was a faint mist of blood spurting out from there. Then, it became silent in the blink of an eye. In the huge mining area, hurricanes swept through, and spiritual and holy light continued to pour into Lin Tian's body. The spiritual and Tao lights within hundreds of thousands of miles gradually became sparse, and in this place, the vast Tao Yuan crystals in the mine turned into spiritual and Tao lights and rushed into Lin Tian's body in the blink of an eye. The Tao lights within the mine were mixed with endless Holy Spirit Qi and all kinds of Tao law fragments, and were far more powerful than the spiritual and Tao lights that surged over from hundreds of thousands of miles away. At this moment, Lin Tian's cultivation broke through to the middle stage of the profound heaven realm, and the Tao powers of the lightning divine Tao and nature divine Tao in his body became several times more condensed. These changes, such as the strengthening of his essence, Qi, and spirit, the increase in his cultivation, and the condensation of his Tao powers, all didn't stop. His cultivation continued to grow stronger, and his cultivation advanced toward the pinnacle of the profound heaven realm at an astonishing speed. Dead, dead! Good kill! Good kill! In this place, Mu Wenyang and the other 900 slaves were so excited about regaining their freedom that they almost forgot everything. After Lin Tian killed the yellow-clothed man and the green-clothed man consecutively, they finally regained their senses. Many of them couldn't help but speak. Their eyes were bloodshot, and they couldn't help but clench their fists. They had been trapped by the Golden Mark Immortal sect for countless years and had been treated as slaves for countless years. Naturally, they were filled with hatred for this sect. Now that they saw Lin Tian kill 2 of the sect's experts consecutively, everyone felt that their hatred had been vented. In this mining area, there were dozens of profound heaven realm early-stage disciples from the Golden Mark Immortal sect. At this moment, all of them were trembling. Run! Run! Return to the sect and report this to the elders! Everyone's eyes were filled with fear. They no longer had the awe-inspiring appearance they had when they were scolding the slaves with their whips. At this moment, when they looked at Lin Tian, all of them were filled with fear. Like stray dogs, they flew out of the mining area. At this moment, they wished they could grow a few more legs so that they could run faster. Whoosh! 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 In the blink of an eye, the sound of air being torn rang out. These people's cultivation bases were not as high as the azure-robed man's, and their speed was also not as fast as his. However, they were still profound heaven realm experts. Furthermore, they were living beings from the fifth dimension. In the blink of an eye, they had already fled far away. Chapter 2359. After the yellow-clothed man and the green-clothed man, the other dozens of ordinary disciples of the Golden Mark Immortal sect who lived in the mining area were also killed. In an instant, all the disciples of the Golden Mark Immortal sect in the Dao Yuan Treasure Crystal Wilderness were wiped out. Good kill! Good kill! Good kill! Over 900 slaves clenched their fists. Many of them couldn't help but shout. They were extremely excited. Lin Tian's expression didn't change. These people from the Golden Mark Immortal sect treated the profound heaven experts who came from the four-dimensional world like this. They treated them as slaves. They were cruel and merciless. He didn't feel the slightest bit of guilt in killing these people. At the same time, he sensed his own body once more. Following the release of the first 4 seals on his soul root, the metamorphosis he experienced at this moment was becoming more and more astonishing. He could feel that he had truly transformed into another person, and every aspect of him could no longer be compared to what it was in the past. If he were to compare them, in terms of aptitude and potential, if he was a boundless universe now, then he couldn't even be compared to a grain of sand 2 months ago. The difference was like heaven and earth. In other words, there was no comparison at all. At the same time, with this place as the center, the psionic Tao radiance within a radius of tens of thousands of kilometers had become extremely thin, and did not continue to surge over. There were many Tao origin crystals in this Tao origin crystal mine, but there was also an endless stream of psionic Tao radiance, and other extraordinary powers intertwining and flowing out, quickly surging into his body. Not bad, he thought to himself. Pretending to be suppressed here was the right thing to do. This Dao Yuan treasure crystal mine was extraordinary. He took a deep breath. At this time, he automatically operated the Reincarnation Heart Sutra and began to refine the Dao Yuan treasure crystals that were flowing into his body. He used the endless Dao Yuan treasure crystals in this Dao Yuan treasure crystal mine to increase his cultivation and condense his Dao energy. In an instant, his essence, energy, and spirit became stronger at an even faster speed. His cultivation also increased at an even faster speed. Dazzling rays of light intertwined in this place, and the hurricane was mighty and mighty. Mu Wen-yang and the other 900 slaves had all regained their freedom. They could leave, but they didn't. They stared at Lin Tian without blinking. Everyone's eyes were flickering. They were grateful to Lin Tian for regaining their freedom, but they were also shocked by the aura Lin Tian was emitting and the strange phenomena he had attracted. Buzz! The hurricane swept through the area, and the holy light continued to intertwine. All the Tao origin crystals in the Tao origin crystal mine continuously turned into light, and all the Holy Spirit Qi, rule fragments, and other powers within them surged into Lin Tian's body at an even faster speed. Lin Tian was cultivating by himself using the Reincarnation Heart Sutra. At this time, he was not worried that someone from the Golden Mark Immortal sect would suddenly appear. This was because in the past 2 months, he had already found out a lot of things. The location of this sect was extremely far from here. It was impossible for them to sense what was happening here. Moreover, this sect would send an elder to inspect this place at most once a month. Yesterday, this elder had just finished inspecting this place and left. It would be impossible for him to return in a short period of time. For a moment, he focused on cultivating the Reincarnation Heart Sutra to refine the power of the Tao origin crystal that was surging into his body. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. His cultivation base had reached the peak of the profound heaven realm from the middle stage. At this time, the Tao origin crystal mine had not been drained dry. He continued to cultivate. Soon, another 7 days had passed. After another 7 days, all the Tao origin crystals in this place had disappeared. They had all turned into spiritual energy and Tao light that surged into his body. The aura outside his body had reached an extremely shocking level, causing the air to scream. Senior Wenyang, and other seniors. He stood on the spot and spoke at this time. He spoke to the 900 profound heaven realm experts from the four-dimensional world who had regained their freedom but still hadn't left. If you don't mind, I'll have to trouble you seniors to stay away from me. It will only be beneficial for you seniors. As soon as he finished speaking, the sky exploded with a boom. A huge lightning vortex immediately appeared. The black tribulation thunder vibrated in the thunder vortex like a black dragon of destruction. The sky darkened in the blink of an eye, and the destructive aura came down from all directions. It was terrifying to the extreme, as if it wanted to destroy everything. After undoing the first 4 seals on his soul root, after 10 days, he had attracted endless spiritual energy and Tao light within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles. He had absorbed the entire Tao origin crystal mine. On this day, his cultivation base had advanced from the early stage of the profound heaven realm to the Tao conversion realm. At this time, he had attracted the Tao conversion heavenly punishment. He has stepped into the Tao conversion realm? There's a heavenly punishment? He controls the four-dimensional laws of our world? These people were all experts from countless years ago, and knew a lot of things. When they saw that a powerful heavenly punishment had descended when Lin Tian stepped into the Tao conversion realm, they immediately knew that Lin Tian controlled the four-dimensional laws. This was because on the path of cultivation, if a heavenly punishment descended in the major realms other than the immortal ascension, 1,000 tribulations, and 10 tribulations realms, it would mean that the heavenly punishment had mastered any of the four-dimensional, 5-dimensional, 6-dimensional, 7-dimensional, 8-dimensional, or 9-dimensional laws. Lin Tian had just ascended from the four-dimensional world when he was brought here. It was obvious that he couldn't have mastered the 5-dimensional laws, let alone the 6-dimensional or 7-dimensional laws. He could only have mastered the 4-dimensional laws. At the same time, they were also shocked by the power of the heavenly punishment that Lin Tian had attracted. The destructive aura was too terrifying, as if it could easily destroy everything. They also understood why Lin Tian had asked them to stay away. That was because with such a terrifying heavenly punishment descending, it would definitely be a disaster for them if they stayed here. Immediately, the group moved together and left at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, they were far away from Lin Tian. They stopped at a safe location and looked over. At this moment, as these people moved away from him, Lin Tian looked up at the sky and began to undergo the heavenly tribulation. "Come!" he said calmly and completely released his Tao conversion realm aura. As he finished speaking, there was a loud boom. In the sky, a destructive lightning bolt came crashing down from the lightning vortex. It was a lightning beam with a diameter of 3 feet. In the blink of an eye, it landed in front of him and landed firmly on his body. In an instant, the ground he was on collapsed inch by inch and the void cracked. However, he was not injured at all. Now that he had unsealed the first 4 seals on his soul root, this path-changing heavenly punishment was extremely frightening. However, he had become much stronger after unsealing the first 4 seals on his soul root, and he had undergone an extremely shocking transformation. Therefore, even though this heavenly punishment was frightening, it did not pose any threat to him at all. Rumble! In the sky, the lightning vortex trembled. Within it, the black lightning became even more rampant, and the second round of heavenly punishment descended. Lin Tian was fearless and did not resist at all. He allowed the terrifying heavenly punishment to land on his body. At the same time, he took out the samsara sword from his body and endured the baptism of the heavenly punishment with him. He used this destructive heavenly punishment to temper this divine sword. Boom! 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 Thunder rumbled and exploded continuously. Bolt after bolt of heavenly punishment struck down continuously, and the destructive power became more and more terrifying. Far away, Mu Wen-yang and the other 900 mysterious heaven realm experts in the four-dimensional world could not help but tremble. Watching Lin Tian go through the Tao conversion tribulation from afar, these 900 mysterious heaven realm experts felt their souls turn cold. The heavenly punishment was truly too terrifying. These ancient experts could clearly feel that any small bolt of lightning from Lin Tian's heavenly punishment could definitely destroy an ordinary Tao conversion expert in an instant. However, during this process, Lin Tian, who was in the midst of such a terrifying heavenly punishment, simply stood there and allowed the destructive heavenly punishment to strike his body. He was not injured at all. The increasingly terrifying heavenly punishment struck Lin Tian's body one after another. It was almost like they were tickling Lin Tian. Moreover, they were also shocked by Lin Tian's samsara sword. They could all feel the sharpness and terror of the samsara sword. Boom! The heavens shook and the destructive heavenly punishment struck down continuously. Bolt after bolt, the destructive aura became stronger and stronger. In the blink of an eye, a total of 91 rounds of heavenly punishment had passed. However, this heavenly tribulation showed no signs of stopping. Lin Tian's eyes flickered. He could roughly guess the reason. It was definitely related to him unsealing part of his soul root. However, he still did not care about this. After unsealing the first 4 seals of his soul root, although the heavenly punishment was terrifying, he had also become stronger. Now, he did not feel the slightest bit of pressure from this heavenly punishment of heavenly punishment. Boom! 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 Thunder rumbled and the destructive aura became more and more terrifying. After a total of 180 rounds of heavenly punishment struck down, the sky gradually regained its clarity. The lightning vortex in the heavens dissipated at an extremely fast speed. The destructive aura that intertwined in this space also disappeared very quickly. In the heavens, rainbow-colored auspicious clouds condensed. They contained the purest power in the world. Large patches of rainbow-colored divine light fell, enveloping Lin Tian and surging into his body. Lin Tian naturally knew how precious the rainbow-colored light was. He immediately circulated the Reincarnation Heart Sutra to refine it. He used this power to stabilize his current realm. After a few minutes, the rainbow-colored auspicious clouds gradually dissipated. At this moment, he truly stood at the level of the Tao conversion realm. He sensed for a moment, and discovered how powerful he was now. The saint energy in his body surged endlessly, as though it would never dry up. His other aspects had also improved tremendously. Now that he had unsealed the first 4 seals of his soul root, and now that he had reached the Tao conversion realm, he was confident that even an ordinary peak Tao conversion expert would not be able to withstand a single blow from him. If he wanted to, he could easily kill them. He tilted his head and looked at the samsara sword in front of him. After the immortal Emperor Pagoda that was forged from the primordial heavenly crystal fused with it, the samsara sword had become his one and only origin divine weapon. After he entered the Tao conversion realm, it became a Tao conversion divine weapon. After going through the baptism of the heavenly punishment of heavenly punishment, it had undoubtedly become even stronger. There were wisps of light in his eyes. He was naturally very satisfied with this result. In a flash, he stored it back into his body. It was also at this moment that swishing sounds could be heard. From afar, Mu Wen-yang and more than 900 mysterious heaven experts from the four-dimensional world saw that he had successfully passed the heavenly tribulation and rushed towards him. Chapter 2360. After the Tao conversion realm heavenly tribulation, the land around the Tao origin treasure realm mine had been charred black. It had sunk a few hundred meters, and not a single inch of undamaged land could be seen within 100,000 feet radius. It had almost completely turned into ruins. Mu Wen-yang and the other 900 mystic heaven realm experts from the four-dimensional world arrived before Lin Tian in the blink of an eye. The 900 or so people looked at the ruined land around them, and then looked at Lin Tian, all of their eyes filled with shock. His cultivation had clearly been sealed by the immortal restricting shackles, but he had easily broken free. After releasing his aura, he had actually triggered thousands of terrifying heavenly anomalies and easily killed all the Golden Mark Immortal Sect disciples in this place. Furthermore, he had grasped the laws of the four-dimensional world and stepped into the Tao conversion realm to attract the heavenly tribulation. All these things had shocked them. Seniors, how do you feel after regaining your freedom? Lin Tian naturally knew what these people were thinking and feeling shocked. However, he didn't care and smiled faintly. After stepping into the Tao conversion realm, his essence, energy, and spirit had reached the peak. All of his aura had been hidden within his body. The 900 Mystic Heaven Realm experts trembled slightly. When they heard Lin Tian's words, they couldn't help but reveal excitement in their eyes. Regaining freedom was undoubtedly the most exciting thing that had happened to them in countless years. It was like a dream. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, young man. Mu Wenyang spoke. At this moment, he bowed 90 degrees to Lin Tian and said, I, Mu Wenyang, have said before that if someone can help me regain my freedom, then I'm willing to do anything. He spoke to Lin Tian with an incomparably solemn and serious expression. From today onwards, as long as you don't make me continue to be a slave, as long as it doesn't go against my morals, no matter what you want me to do, I, Mu Wenyang, will definitely not say no. Almost at the same time, the other 900-plus profound heaven realm experts also spoke up and bowed to Lin Tian. Same for us. From today onwards, as long as you don't make us continue to be slaves, as long as it doesn't go against our morals, we're willing to follow you forever. Over 900 people, they had been suppressed and enslaved for who knows how many years. They couldn't even beg for death. Many of them had even become numb to it, and had given up on everything. But now, they were saved by Lin Tian. They were no longer enslaved and had regained their freedom. To them, this was undoubtedly a grace of rebirth. This grace was really too great. Lin Tian's eyes flickered. Every one of these 900 people was a profound heaven realm expert. Since they were able to reach this stage in the four-dimensional world, they were definitely not ordinary. Their talent and potential were definitely not bad. Now that such a group of experts had asked to follow him, it was naturally a good thing for him. It could instantly strengthen the forces under his command by countless times. Most importantly, even though he had done such a great favor today, these people still didn't forget about morality and righteousness, saying that they would do anything for him that didn't violate morality. It was enough to show that these people were all righteous and magnanimous. In this way, he had no reason not to let such a group of experts follow him. There was no reason not to take them in as his subordinates. I have created a sacred place called the Celestial Court. I am the master of the Celestial Court. If you don't mind, you can join, he said. The 900-plus profound heaven realm experts trembled slightly, and then immediately knelt down on one knee. Greetings, Lord Celestial Emperor! The 900-plus profound heaven realm experts shouted in unison. They were all people from countless years ago. They did not look down on Lin Tian at all, even though he was much younger than them. They directly called him Lord Celestial Emperor, and their faces were filled with respect. There was no doubt that they were all willing to join the Celestial Court and had already regarded them as Lin Tian's subordinates. All right, get up. Lin Tian nodded and raised his right hand slightly. Gentle saint energy intertwined and personally lifted the 900-plus profound heaven realm experts up. More than 900 profound heaven realm experts joined the Celestial Court. Moreover, they were all profound heaven realm experts from countless years ago. Their combat strength was impeccable. Now, the combat strength of the Celestial Court had increased countless times in an instant. Lord Celestial Emperor, I have a request. One of the 900-plus profound heaven realm experts said. The Celestial Court must be established in the four-dimensional world. Can you allow us to stay in this world for a while before returning to the Celestial Court? The person said hatefully. Golden Mark Immortal Sect, please allow us to destroy it before returning. Lord Celestial Emperor, please grant us our wish. Beside him, the other people, including Mu Wenyang, could not help but tremble slightly after hearing this person's words. They could not help but grit their teeth and speak. Once again, they bowed to Lin Tian and said, "Lord Celestial Emperor, please grant us our wish." All of them had been suppressed by the Golden Mark Immortal sect when they first ascended from the four-dimensional world to the five-dimensional world. After that, they had been enslaved until now. Countless years had passed since then. The Golden Mark Immortal sect did not treat them as humans at all and humiliated them wantonly. All of them hated the Golden Mark Immortal sect to the core, and wished that they could swallow everyone in the sect alive. Hearing their words, Lin Tian nodded. There was even a trace of satisfaction in his eyes. Of course. It's only right. He could understand their feelings very well and agreed with their thoughts. After being enslaved for so many years, now that they had regained their freedom, he would be disappointed if they did not say anything and directly return to the four-dimensional world. If they did not take revenge for such a deep grudge, where would their dignity be? At the same time, an idea popped up in his mind. The Immortal Court was already number 1 in the fourth dimension. It was the undisputed number 1 inheritance in the fourth dimension. Now that there were more than 900 profound heaven realm experts in the fifth dimension, he wanted to use them as a foundation to establish the Immortal Court in the fifth dimension. Then, he would spread the might of the Immortal Court throughout the fifth dimension. He briefly explained his idea to the 900 profound heaven realm experts and said, "Let's leave this place first and find a suitable place. I will establish a branch of the Immortal Court in this world." Seeing that Lin Tian had agreed to let them stay in the five-dimensional world to seek revenge, the 900 profound heaven realm experts were very grateful. Then, when they heard that Lin Tian was going to establish a branch of the Immortal Court in the five-dimensional world and spread the might of the Immortal Court throughout the five-dimensional world, they could not help but become very excited and clench their fists. "Yes, Lord Celestial Emperor!" the crowd shouted in unison. The creatures in the five-dimensional world were far from being comparable to those in the four-dimensional world. After being enslaved for countless years, they deeply understood this point. This world was too strong. The difference between the four-dimensional world and the five-dimensional world was on the same level. Coming from the four-dimensional world and wanting to establish a sect in the five-dimensional world and spread its might throughout the five-dimensional world was almost impossible. If it was anyone else who said this, they would definitely not believe it. But now that Lin Tian said it, they firmly believed it. It wasn't just because Lin Tian had allowed them to regain their freedom and gain their trust. It was more because the strength Lin Tian had displayed just now had caused numerous terrifying phenomena of the heavens and the earth. That was too shocking. They believed that this young leader of theirs was absolutely capable of accomplishing such a feat. At this moment, they could even see the future of the Immortal Court dominating the five-dimensional world. All of them were indescribably excited. "Let's go." Lin Tian spoke again and led the 900 people to leave this place. The dimension of the five-dimensional world was far from what the four-dimensional world could compare to. But in terms of territory, it was much simpler than the four-dimensional world. It was only composed of countless stars and a boundless central world. About half a month later, he and the 900 profound heaven realm experts left this place and stepped into one of the stars in the five-dimensional world. Compared to the other stars in the vicinity, this star was as small as a grain of sand. It was not eye-catching at all. However, it was countless times larger than the celestial void world in the four-dimensional world. It was incomparably vast. This caused him to be once again shocked by this five-dimensional world. Although the structure of the territory was simpler than the four-dimensional world and was only composed of countless stars and a central world, even the smallest star was far from what the celestial void world in the four-dimensional world could compare to. The difference was simply too great. Then, when he and the 900 profound heaven realm experts stepped into the star, they were once again shocked. This star was filled with ancient trees and immortal plants. The mountains and rivers were extremely majestic, and the spiritual energy was extremely frightening. However, there were no humans at all. They could only sense some demonic beasts. Moreover, there were very few demonic beasts. It felt as if this star, which was countless times larger than the celestial void world, was just a barren star. This caused him to involuntarily suck in a breath of cold air. as expected of the five-dimensional world. However, he soon nodded inwardly. This star was considered a barren star in the five-dimensional world. Now that he had just ascended from the four-dimensional world, if he wanted to establish a branch of the immortal court, he would have to do it secretly, and not make it public. Therefore, this star, which was considered a barren star in the five-dimensional world but actually had a lot of spiritual energy, was naturally the best choice for him to establish a branch of the immortal court. Immediately, he led the 900 profound heaven realm experts to this star. Using the dragon burial scripture as the foundation, he found the most extraordinary chain of immortal mountains. Then, he took out immortal materials and treasures one after another. Together with the 900 profound heaven realm experts, he quickly set up palace after palace in this chain of immortal mountains. After successfully establishing the branch of the immortal court, he used his Tao conversion realm cultivation base to brand a total of 49 killing formations in the surroundings. With his attainments in the path of killing formations, his potential after unsealing the fourth seal of the soul root, and his current Tao conversion realm cultivation base, the power of the dozens of killing formations he engraved was undoubtedly terrifying to the extreme. He was sure that even if an early-stage all-creation realm expert came, they would definitely be in for a bad time. All right. Looking at the branch of the immortal court in front of him, his eyes couldn't help but intertwine with wisps of light. Chapter 2361. After establishing a new branch of the immortal court in the fifth dimension, Lin Tian sat alone in one of the divine palaces of the immortal court branch. He circulated the Reincarnation Heart Sutra, and his body glowed with holy light. It was as if wisps of holy light flames were dancing around him. After stepping into the Tao conversion realm, although he had stabilized his realm with the power of the rainbow divine light after the heavenly tribulation, it was not a bad thing to go into seclusion to stabilize his realm. Most importantly, the first 4 seals on his soul root had been unlocked, and he had to understand the state of his soul root and his body. Time flew by, and half a month had passed. The holy light around his body had become much more stable than half a month ago, and his essence, chi, and spirit had become much stronger. However, he did not come out of seclusion. He continued to stay in the divine palace and continued his seclusion. Fifth dimension, central great world. What's going on? On the scorched earth, where Lin Tianyi underwent his heavenly tribulation a few months ago, an elder of the Golden Mark Immortal sect came to inspect the Dao Yuan treasure crystal mine. However, as far as he could see, the Dao Yuan treasure crystal mine had completely disappeared. The ground nearby had sunk a few hundred feet, and the territory was charred black. The area within a radius of 10,000 feet had been turned into ruins. This elder was a Tao conversion expert, and his divine sense covered an extremely far distance. He was searching for the traces of the yellow-robed man and the green-robed man who were in charge of this place, as well as the clues of the other disciples. However, his efforts were to no avail. He only found remnants of death chi in this space, but it was not dense. At most, 100 people had died here. What happened? The elder was furious. The Dao Yuan treasure crystal mine had disappeared, and the territory within a radius of 10,000 feet had been turned into ruins. The yellow-robed man, the green-robed man, and the other disciples had all disappeared. Even the slaves had disappeared. This made the elder furious. Immediately, the elder left the place quickly and returned to the Golden Mark Immortal sect to report everything to the sect master. Immediately, the Golden Trace sect master was enraged. The other elders were also enraged. Their expressions all sunk. That Dao Yuan treasure crystal mine was the largest Dao Yuan treasure crystal mine that they had discovered in the past few hundred years. It would have a miraculous effect in nurturing their disciples in the future. However, the Dao Yuan treasure crystal mine had disappeared. Nearly 100 disciples and hundreds of slaves that were guarding it had also disappeared. This was a great loss to the Golden Mark Immortal sect. Send someone out to investigate. Find the whereabouts of Zhao Jin and the others. Find the whereabouts of those hundreds of slaves. The Golden Trace sect master said coldly, Including Zhao Jin and the others, as well as the slaves, there are more than 1,000 people there. Since the death aura there indicates that at most 100 people have died, then there are still 900 people alive. Whether they are my sect's disciples or the slaves, find them for this seat. Ask them clearly what happened there, and who destroyed my sect's treasure mine. The yellow-clothed man, the green-clothed man, and the others were disciples of the Golden Mark Immortal sect. Naturally, the Golden Mark Immortal sect knew what they looked like. As for the hundreds of slaves, the Golden Mark Immortal sect also had records of their appearances. Immediately, many disciples of the Golden Mark Immortal sect went out to search for the yellow-clothed man and the others, as well as the hundreds of slaves. In the branch of the Immortal Court in this world, Lin Tian sat cross-legged in a divine hall. He was still in seclusion. Buzz. Outside his body, strands of 9-colored holy radiance intertwined. His essence, energy, and spirit became more and more condensed. Then, in the blink of an eye, another month passed. Another month later, on this day, Lin Tian opened his eyes. After 1.5 months of closed-door cultivation, his Dao conversion realm cultivation had completely stabilized and was unshakable. He was also completely familiar with and adapted to the current state of his soul roots, and had a better understanding of his own body. It was also on this day that he stopped his seclusion and walked out of the divine hall. Mu Wenyang and the other 900+ profound heaven realm experts had been in this branch of the Immortal Court for the past few days. During Lin Tian's seclusion, they were patching up some of the deficiencies of this branch of the Immortal Court. At the same time, they were also protecting Lin Tian. As Lin Tian came out of seclusion, the group quickly gathered. Lord Immortal Emperor, now that you've come out of seclusion, are you preparing to go out and train? Someone asked. The others also looked at Lin Tian. Lin Tian nodded. He did not hide this matter. Then, he said to the group, "It's natural for you to seek revenge on the Golden Mark Immortal sect. However, remember to protect yourselves. I don't want any of you to die in the process of revenge. After you've taken your revenge and destroyed the Golden Mark Immortal sect, you can start to develop the Immortal Court secretly. After that, when the Immortal Court can truly be revealed to the people of the 5th dimension, I will inform you." By himself, he could wander around the 5th dimension as he pleased and didn't need to care about anything. However, it wasn't the right time to expose the Immortal Court's branch here. This was because the overall strength of the branch here was far too weak, far inferior to some of the other sects in this world. It wasn't a good thing to expose it too early. At the very least, he had to wait until he had made a name for himself in this world before he made it public. Before that, it was best to let the Immortal Court branch here develop in secret. On the other hand, with his current strength, as long as he made some preparations, he could help Mu Wenyang and the others destroy the Golden Mark Immortal sect. After all, from what he knew, the strongest person in this sect was only at the early stage of the All Creations realm. After he unsealed the 4 seals on his soul root, it would not be easy for him to kill an early-stage All Creations realm expert with his early-stage Dao conversion realm cultivation. Although it would not be easy, it would definitely not be too difficult. However, he did not intend to help Mu Wenyang and the others. This was just like how his teacher did not help him kill Lunhui Wang and the others in the past. His teacher knew what he was thinking. He knew that he wanted to personally avenge the old patriarch and the others. Only by doing so could he truly end the hatred between them. Now, Mu Wenyang and the others must have the same thoughts as him. After being enslaved for countless years, they must want to personally avenge this great hatred. Yes, Lord Immortal Emperor. We will remember! More than 900 people said in unison. At the same time, they felt even more grateful to Lin Tian in their hearts. Lin Tian's simple words contained too much. He prioritized their safety and told them to focus on the Immortal Court only after they had taken their revenge. Everything he did now was for their sake. This caused them to feel moved in their hearts. Lin Tian waved his hand and walked around the branch of the Immortal Court. Then, he bid farewell to the 900 people and left. Not long after he stepped out of this star, he re-entered the central great world of the 5th dimension. Within the fifth dimension, the central great world was vast and boundless. This was the most dazzling stage in this world. After re-entering the central great world, he walked on foot and stepped into the ancient mountains and immortal forests of this world. The Holy Spirit chi in the air was incomparably dense. After he unsealed the first 4 layers of seals on his soul root, even if he didn't circulate the Reincarnation Heart Sutra to take the initiative to absorb the Holy Spirit chi, the Holy Spirit chi would automatically surge into his body. Moreover, even the Tao Law fragments would automatically surge into his body and enter his flesh and blood. Of course, the Holy Spirit chi and the Tao Law fragments would automatically surge into his body. In terms of speed and degree, it was far from comparable to the short period of time when he unsealed the first 4 layers of seals on his soul root. But even so, this matter was frightening enough. He had reason to believe that after unsealing the first 4 layers of seals on his soul root, even if he didn't take the initiative to cultivate, his cultivation would slowly increase and become stronger. Now that he had unsealed the first 4 layers of seals on his soul root, even if he directly went into a deep sleep, he would be able to reach the level of a heaven and earth supreme after enough time. This was the potential he possessed after unsealing the first 4 layers of seals on his soul root. It was so strong that it made his heart palpitate. Roar! The beast's roar shook the sky, and a demonic wind whistled in the mountain forest. A powerful, ferocious demon appeared. Its body was covered in sharp spikes, and it looked like a giant hedgehog. Its eyes were intertwined with a demonic blue light, and it pounced toward Lin Tian. Its aura was very frightening, and it was definitely comparable to an ordinary true realm expert. As for its physique, one could tell that it was very terrifying with just a glance, as if it could pierce through everything. Lin Tian sighed slightly. The dimension of the 5th dimension was really much stronger than the 4th dimension. Any random demonic beast he encountered was actually comparable to a true realm expert. However, his heart was filled with emotions, and his footsteps didn't change at all. The ferocious demon that was pouncing toward him had just come within 5 feet of him when it was sent flying with a bang. It was blasted away by the natural intertwining aura outside his body, and it rolled for a few hundred feet before it crashed into a huge black rock. It immediately fainted and didn't wake up. He didn't care about it at all, and his footsteps didn't change at all. Soon, he was far away from this place. He simply walked in this celestial mountain, and soon stepped into another celestial mountain. He walked completely on foot, blending in with nature and comprehending it, so that his body was always in an ethereal state. He used this state to comprehend the path of reincarnation. The complete reincarnation. This was what his father and mother wanted him to master, and they were full of expectations for him. His teacher also trusted him completely, and believed that he could master the complete reincarnation. Naturally, he had to work hard on this path, and he couldn't let his parents and teacher down. He simply walked, and his footsteps were gentle. There was no radiance outside his body, and he looked like a simple mortal, but the reincarnation aura in his body was constantly vibrating. Now, he had unsealed the first 4 layers of seals on his soul root to comprehend reincarnation. He clearly felt that it was much, much easier than before. In just a short period of comprehension, he felt that he had come a long way on the path of reincarnation. Boom! Suddenly, the saint aura vibrated, and a hurricane swept out. 8 figures appeared in the distance, and 7 of them used special methods to conceal their true faces. Their auras were very frightening, and they chased after a blue-clothed woman who was obviously seriously injured. Sharp blades constantly slashed toward the blue-clothed woman. Chapter 2362. The woman in blue was heavily injured, and her aura was weak and chaotic. She was escaping in the direction of Lin Tian. As she got closer, she naturally saw Lin Tian. After pausing for a moment, she changed direction and fled in another direction. The 7 people who had covered their faces were all dressed in black and were at the peak of Tao transformation. Only their eyes could be seen clearly, and their gazes were cold. 6 of them continued to chase after the woman in blue, while the other person did not change his direction at all, heading straight for Lin Tian. In the blink of an eye, this black-clothed person appeared in front of Lin Tian and directly used his sharp claw to grab Lin Tian's head. His attack was very vicious. It was obvious that Lin Tian saw them chasing after the woman in blue and wanted to silence them. Lin Tian leaned to the side and avoided the attack. "Do you want to die?" he said coldly. This person's eyes narrowed slightly. Clearly, he did not expect Lin Tian to avoid this attack so easily. But soon, his eyes became even colder, and the aura around his body grew stronger. His sharp claw became even more vicious, and he grabbed at Lin Tian again. Lin Tian's eyes turned cold. Originally, he did not want to get involved in this mess, but this person repeatedly used vicious methods to kill him, so he naturally did not have any good temper. Black lightning intertwined around his body, turning into a circle of lightning that spread out. With a poof, the person's arm that grabbed at Lin Tian shattered on the spot. Then, the lightning continued to spread and landed on his body. Ah! A scream reverberated, and a trace of horror appeared in the person's eyes. Then, his entire body exploded, turning into a cloud of blood. Such a miserable cry immediately caused the other 6 black-clothed individuals, who were chasing after the blue-clothed lady, to stop in their tracks. They looked towards Lin Tian. After which, they saw their companion, who had charged towards Lin Tian, turn into a bloody mist and die. Everyone's pupils shrunk. At the same time, the woman in blue who was escaping could not help but be moved. At this moment, she stopped and looked at Lin Tian. Lin Tian walked into the distance, his back facing the woman in blue and the 6 black-clothed people. With a flick of his finger, he swept out 6 rays of sword light. With an ear-piercing clang, 6 sword beams streaked across the sky in the blink of an eye, heading straight for the 6 black-robed men. Judging from the fact that the black-clothed man wanted to silence him, these companions of the black-clothed man were definitely not good people. If he did not kill them at this time, these 6 people would probably remember him, and then bring trouble to him one after another. On the other hand, the woman in blue had left a good impression on him. She was originally fleeing in his direction, but she immediately changed direction after seeing him. It was obvious that she did not want to implicate him. It was similar to when Ning Yeye was young. He killed these 6 people to help the woman in blue. He was able to discern that with the current heavily injured state of the blue-clothed woman, even flying was slightly difficult for her. If he didn't make a move now, then it wouldn't be long before she would definitely be killed by those people. With his current battle prowess, it would be too easy for him to kill some ordinary peak Dao transformation experts in the 5th dimension. The 6 rays of sword light arrived in front of the 6 black-clothed people in the blink of an eye, sealing off the surroundings. The 6 peak Dao transformation black-clothed people could not even dodge, and were all struck in the blink of an eye. In an instant, 6 bloody mists exploded in the void. The 6 black-clothed people were all destroyed in body and soul. The woman in blue had a graceful figure and a moving appearance. She looked at the bloody mists floating in the void after the 6 black-clothed people exploded, then looked at Lin Tian from afar. Her beautiful eyes could not help but focus deeply. The 7 black-clothed people who were chasing her were all peak Dao transformation experts. Their strength was extremely terrifying, but now, Lin Tian had killed them all in the blink of an eye. It was as if he had squashed a few ants. It was hard for her not to be shocked. Lin Tian himself appeared very calm, as if nothing had happened. He continued to walk into the distance. His aura was very calm, as if he had not made a move at all. The woman in blue's expression changed slightly. She paused for a moment, then immediately chased after Lin Tian. Soon, she arrived in front of Lin Tian. Thank you for just now." She bowed to Lin Tian and thanked him. Earlier, if not for Lin Tian lending a hand and killing those few black-clothed men, her outcome would absolutely be a dead end. "You're welcome." Lin Tian Andao continued to walk into the distance. The woman in blue was as beautiful as a fairy. Seeing Lin Tian's reaction, she could not help but stiffen. She was a little stunned. In the 5th dimension, she was known as the Second Pearl. When ordinary men saw her, their eyes would light up and they would find it hard to move. But now, Lin Tian did not even look at her. He did not care about her beauty at all. This made her a little surprised. After a pause, she chased after Lin Tian and slowly followed beside Lin Tian. My surname is Yu. Yu Yaoshi, what about you? You. She walked beside Lin Tian, following Lin Tian's footsteps. Then, her expression suddenly changed. You're from the fourth dimension? Lin Tian's eyes narrowed. He stopped and looked at her. How did the woman in blue know that he was from the fourth dimension? Seeing Lin Tian stop and look at her, Yu Yaoshi hurriedly said, don't misunderstand. I don't have any prejudice against people from the fourth dimension. She said, a few days ago, a Tao origin crystal mine of the Golden Mark Immortal Sect was destroyed. Some disciples of the sect are searching for some disciples who were in charge of that mine, as well as some others. She paused for a moment before continuing. They are searching for the traces of some disciples and some others in that mine. Many cultivators have seen it, and I have seen it as well. Your appearance is in that mine, so I know who you are. I am just a little surprised to recognize you now. Lin Tian's eyes flickered. So that's how it is. He didn't pay too much attention to it, so he continued walking into the distance. Seeing Lin Tian walking ahead without paying any attention to her, Yu Yaoshi couldn't help but feel a little surprised. She quickly followed behind him. What's your name? She followed behind Lin Tian and asked. She couldn't help but feel a strong interest in Lin Tian. Lin Tian. Lin Tian now. It wasn't a big deal to tell her his name. It wouldn't affect him in any way. Lin Tian, thank you so much for what you did earlier. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to survive. Yu Yaoshi expressed her gratitude once more. Then, she looked at Lin Tian with astonishment in her eyes and said, Speaking of which, you're really strong. You don't seem like someone from the fourth dimension at all. She explained. Don't misunderstand. I don't mean to look down on people from the fourth dimension. It's just that it's rare for people from the fourth dimension to possess such strength. Given your current cultivation, to possess such strength, I'm afraid that you wouldn't be any weaker than the gods' sons and saintesses of the top orthodoxies in this world. She was truly astonished by Lin Tian's strength. She had never heard of someone from the fourth dimension to be so strong. At the same time, another doubt arose in her heart. Given the strength that Lin Tian had displayed earlier, how could he have been captured by the disciples of a fifth-rate power like the Golden Mark Immortal Sect to mine a mine? That was completely impossible. Then, she suddenly thought of the Dao Yuan treasure crystal mine of the Golden Mark Immortal Sect. Even though it had disappeared entirely, according to the rumors, it wasn't simply destroyed. Instead, all of the Dao Yuan treasure crystals in the mine had been absorbed by someone. As such, she couldn't help but think of something. She asked Lin Tian softly, You couldn't have intentionally allowed yourself to be captured by the Golden Mark Immortal Sect, right? Your goal was the Dao Yuan treasure crystal mine. Lin Tian wasn't too bothered by Yu Yaoshi's astonishment at his display of strength, nor did he bother replying to the other party's conjecture. Instead, he paused for a moment before asking, It hasn't been too long since I ascended from the four-dimensional world, so I'm still a little unfamiliar with the top-notch orthodoxies and powers in this world. Do you mind enlightening me? Yu Yaoshi looked at Lin Tian. Lin Tian didn't directly respond to her guess, but he didn't deny it either. As such, she took another look at Lin Tian's expression and confirmed that Lin Tian had intentionally allowed himself to be captured by the Golden Mark Immortal Sect. He was aiming for the Dao Yuan treasure crystal mine. After a short pause, she answered Lin Tian's question. There are 5 top orthodoxies in the 5th dimension. They are the All Beginnings Divine Palace, the Heaven Guidance Divine Palace, the 100 Sage Ancient Pavilion, the Xiang family of the Wilderness, and the Yu family of the Wilderness. These 5 powers rule over the 5th dimension in a pentagonal formation. Each of them has a 5th dimension realm ancestor overseeing them, and their legacies are incomparably long. After saying that, she went on to list out some of the extraordinary powers behind the 5 top orthodoxies for Lin Tian Dao. Lin Tian immediately understood. He memorized all the powers Yu Yaoshi mentioned and their symbols. Then, he looked at her and asked, "You're from the Yu family?" Yu Yaoshi nodded. She didn't try to hide her identity. She smiled and said, "I'm the holy maiden of the Yu family." Lin Tian was a little surprised. Even though he had guessed that Yu Yaoshi was from the Yu family, he didn't expect her to have such a high status in the Yu family. She was actually the holy maiden of the Yu family. Why is the holy maiden of the Yu family being hunted down? Zhang Xian asked curiously. As the holy maiden of the Yu family, her standing was naturally high. Yet, there were actually people who dared to make such a move on her. Furthermore, he could sense that Yu Yaoshi's cultivation was at Dao conversion realm pinnacle. Even though she was severely injured and her sage might wasn't too strong, the quality of her sage might and the purity of her spirit, Zhang Xian could tell that Yu Yaoshi was no ordinary person. Logically speaking, those black-robed men shouldn't have been a match for her. Under normal circumstances, they would have been killed in the blink of an eye. Yet, Yu Yaoshi was the one being hunted down by those black-robed men instead. This made Zhang Xian curious. Hearing Zhang Xian's question, Yu Yaoshi couldn't help but frown. Not too long ago, an ancient ruin was discovered, and it was verified to be the immortal abode of an extremely powerful ancestor. There are countless immortal treasures inside, and several top orthodoxies and other major powers are heading there. Our Yu family is no exception. 2 days ago, I left the Yu family and headed to an ancient mountain in search of an item to forge an artifact in preparation for challenging the ancestor's immortal abode. But who could have thought that someone would ambush me in that ancient mountain and set up so many traps? I nearly lost my life there. Yu Yaoshi paused for a moment, and her complexion turned awful. Only those in the clan know that I'm heading out. Someone in your clan is trying to get rid of you, Lin Tian replied casually. There was no need for him to say this out loud. He knew that Yu Yaoshi must have guessed this as well. Chapter 2363. Hearing Lin Tian's words, Yu Yaoshi's complexion turned even uglier. Just as Lin Tian had said, she had indeed guessed that the ambush this time was done by the people of her clan. Otherwise, how could those black-clothed people know that she would go to that ancient mountain and set up layers upon layers of killing methods to wait for her there? It was precisely because she had guessed as much that her complexion turned so ugly. She was the holy maiden of the Yu clan, and yet someone from her clan had plotted to assassinate her. Who could be so cold-blooded and brazen? Lin Tian didn't say anything else and continued walking forward. Seeing Lin Tian walking forward, Yu Yaoshi paused for a moment before retracting the awful look on her face. She quickly followed behind Lin Tian, sizing him up from the corner of her eye. "Aren't you going back to the clan?" Lin Tian asked as he walked forward. "Not for the time being. I'll head straight to the ancestral monarch's immortal abode," replied Yu Yaoshi. Yu Yaoshi paused for a moment before asking Lin Tian now. Do you want to come with me?" she said. According to the research of some old antiques, that immortal abode was the place where the 7 treasures ancestor cultivated. It was also the place where he passed away. The 7 treasures ancestor left behind an illustrious name in the 5th dimension and used his life to refine the 7 ancestral treasures. All of them are top-notch 5th dimensional level treasures, so there is a possibility that they are in that immortal abode. Furthermore, the ancient scripture that made him famous, the 7 Stars Treasure Codex, might be in there. That ancient scripture is also an incomparably top-notch ancient scripture of the 5th dimension. It is mysterious and unfathomable, and is not inferior to any of the ancient scriptures of the 5 great orthodoxies in this world. In fact, it might even be stronger than the ancient scriptures of the 5 great orthodoxies. Other than that, there are also many other artifacts and treasures, and there might even be some rare fortuitous encounters, she said to Lin Tian now. "Come with me. With your strength, you should be able to obtain something. Aren't you worried that I'll take away all the treasures there? If that happens, you'll have made a wasted trip." Lin Tian smiled. "You're really confident. The divine sons of the top orthodoxies will be there. Moreover, there will be other major forces as well. The competition will be intense. It's already good enough to get one of the sex treasures. You actually want to take all of them. Yu Yaoshi chuckled gracefully. However, if you're really able to obtain all of the treasures in the ancestral monarch's immortal abode, that's a good thing. I'll be happy for you. Lin Tiantan chuckled softly. He could tell that Yu Yaoshi was speaking from the bottom of her heart, without the slightest hint of pretense. He thought for a moment and said, "All right, I'll go with you." After stepping into the fifth dimension, his original intention was to temper himself in the fifth dimension. While raising his cultivation, he also did his best to comprehend reincarnation. Then, step by step, he would ascend to the higher realms, and finally reach the ninth dimension to meet his parents and master's wife. Now that the ancestral monarch's immortal abode was right in front of him, it was a natural place for him to temper himself. It was just right for him. Moreover, he had established a branch of the immortal court in the fifth dimension, and it just so happened that he needed a lot of cultivation resources. Inside the ancestral monarch's immortal abode, there were 7 top-notch fifth-dimensional artifacts, a fifth-dimensional ancient scripture, the 7 Stars Manual, and many other divine pills and treasures. All of these were extremely important to the development of the immortal court branch in the fifth dimension. In fact, they would be of great use to him as well. Thus, he decided to go with Yu Yaoshi. "All right, it's settled then." Yu Yaoshi nodded and smiled. The ancestral monarch's immortal abode is surrounded by terrifying poisonous gas. However, it's gradually dissipating. It'll take about half a month for it to completely disperse. Only then can we truly enter the immortal abode. Let's head there on foot. We should be able to reach the periphery of the immortal abode in roughly 8 days. Lin Tian nodded. Together with Yu Yaoshi, they headed toward the ancestral monarch's immortal abode. Very quickly, 7 days passed. 7 days later, along with Yu Yaoshi, a boundless sea appeared in front of them. The sea was shrouded in a bloody mist, causing the air to sizzle. Clearly, it was filled with terrifying poison. Just looking at it was enough to cause one's scalp to turn numb. "We're here." At this point, Yu Yaoshi gazed into the distance and said, "The ancestral monarch's immortal abode is located at the center of this sea, and the bloody mist surrounds the periphery of the sea. I have no idea how it came to be, but it's extremely frightening and difficult to traverse through. Even if one were to fly across the sky without coming into contact with the bloody mist, one would still suffer. There was someone who attempted to do so in the past, but in the blink of an eye, he was corroded by an inexplicable aura and fell from the sky, dying a tragic death in the sea." While listening to Yu Yaoshi's words, Lin Tianyi also turned his gaze toward the sea and the bloody mist. He used the dragon burial scripture to observe it, but even so, he was unable to discern the origin of the bloody mist within a short period of time. All he could tell was that the bloody mist was indeed frightening. Even if a pure Yang realm cultivator were to come into contact with it, they would be reduced to a bloody mist in the blink of an eye. At the same time, he also noticed that the bloody mist was indeed dissipating, just as Yu Yaoshi had said. Based on the speed at which it was dissipating, it would take another 9 days for the bloody mist to completely vanish. At this point in time, there were already quite a few cultivators gathered in this area. There were members of powerful clans and powerful wandering cultivators, and they were all here for the ancestral monarch's immortal abode at the center of the sea. All of a sudden, an uproar broke out among the crowd. Many of them turned their gazes in Yu Yaoshi's direction. Among them, there were a few male cultivators whose eyes were blazing with excitement. Naturally, Lin Tian noticed the commotion as well. He also noticed that the gazes were directed toward him because of Yu Yaoshi. "You sure have a lot of admirers." Zhang Xian chuckled softly. Hearing those words, Yu Yaoshi thought about how Lin Tian didn't seem to care about her beauty at all, and she couldn't help but roll her eyes. "Do you think that everyone is like you? You don't even have the slightest reaction toward me, the number 2 beauty of the 5th dimension." All along, she had been very confident in her appearance. In the 5th dimension, even the god scions of the other top-notch orthodoxies were stunned by her beauty when they first met. However, Lin Tian hadn't shown the slightest hint of surprise in his eyes ever since they first met. In fact, when they first met, he didn't even look her in the eye. It was as if he didn't care about her beauty at all. This made her, the number 2 pearl of the 5th dimension, feel a little indignant. She couldn't help but feel a little hurt. Is that so? Lin Tian chuckled. It was only then that he realized that Yu Yaoshi was the number 2 pearl of the 5th dimension. Pardon me for my lack of respect. Yu Yaoshi was indeed very beautiful, but if she were to be placed next to Wu Yi, the disparity was simply too great. Be it in terms of appearance or disposition, she couldn't be compared to Wu Yi. In fact, even his own daughter, Ruoxian, couldn't compare to her. So, how could he possibly be stunned by her beauty? He really couldn't feel that way at all. In fact, he even believed that there was no woman in the world who could make him feel the slightest bit of surprise. He didn't think that there was a woman in the world who could compare to Wu Yi in terms of appearance or disposition. Even Wu Yi's birth mother, who looked exactly the same as Wu Yi, couldn't hold a candle to Wu Yi in terms of disposition. Hearing Lin Tian's words and seeing the expression on Lin Tian's face, Yu Yaoshi felt even more hurt. She couldn't help but roll her eyes at Lin Tian and say, "You're really perfunctory." Lin Tian chuckled. He didn't say anything else. Instead, he shifted his gaze back to the blood mist in the distance. This blood mist was extraordinary. He really wanted to know where it came from and why it was dissipating. It was also at this moment that he felt quite a few gazes falling on him. Quite a few people were looking in his direction. Then, more and more gazes fell on him. Isn't that a slave of the Golden Mark Immortal Sect? He came up from the lower realm and was suppressed by the Golden Mark Immortal Sect. He was mining for them, but for some reason, he disappeared. That mine is no longer there. The Golden Mark Immortal Sect is currently searching for him. How did he end up together with the Holy Maiden of the Yu clan? He does seem to be one of the slaves of the Golden Mark Immortal Sect. I've seen his face imprint before. Discussions broke out. Many people couldn't help but frown as they looked at Lin Tian. A few days ago, the Golden Mark Immortal Sect's Tao Origin Crystal Mine disappeared. Some of the disciples in charge of the mine, and the hundreds of slaves who were mining there previously spread the news. Lin Tian was one of them, and many cultivators in the 5th dimension saw him. At this moment, quite a few people recognized Lin Tian. Lin Tian noticed the gazes of these people and heard some of the discussions, but he didn't pay them any heed. Yu Yaoshi also heard the discussions. She smiled at Lin Tian now and said, "You're the one who's inferior in terms of territory." Lin Tian smiled and said, "Thank you." He knew that Yu Yaoshi was speaking up for him. "There's no need to thank me. I'm just speaking the truth." Yu Yaoshi smiled. "Yaoshi!" At this moment, a voice sounded. A woman walked over with several powerful servants behind her. Soon she arrived before Yu Yaoshi and said with a smile, "As expected, you've already arrived here before us." The woman was wearing a golden dress, giving her a noble aura. Her spirit was very strong, and her cultivation was at the peak of Tao Revolution. The servants behind her weren't simple either. All of them were at the Tao Revolution realm. "Sister Yin!" Yu Yaoshi called out as she intimately grabbed the arm of the woman in the golden dress. It was clear that they were on good terms. After a brief pause, she turned to Lin Tian and said, "Right, Lin Tian, this is my uncle's daughter, my cousin, Yu Fengyin." After which, she introduced Lin Tian to the woman in the golden dress. "Sister Yin, this is Lin Tian, a new friend of mine." Lin Tian nodded to Yu Fengyin as a polite greeting. Yu Fengyin turned to Lin Tian and nodded in response. Then, she turned to Yu Yaoshi and said, "Yaoshi, come over here. I have something to tell you." "Something? What is it, Sister Yin? Can't we talk here?" Yu Yaoshi asked. Yu Fengyin shot a glance at Lin Tian and replied with a smile. "It's a family matter." Yu Yaoshi was taken aback for a moment before coming to a realization. She turned to Lin Tian and said apologetically, "About that, Lin Tian, I'm sorry. I'll be leaving with Sister Yin for a moment. I'll look for you later." "Sure," Lin Tian replied with a smile. Since Yu Fengyin wanted to discuss family matters with Yu Yaoshi, and he was an outsider of the Yu clan, it was only right for him to leave. And I'll look for you soon, Yu Yaoshi replied. Together with Yu Fengyin and Yu Fengyin's servants, they headed in a different direction. Soon they were far away from the area, heading into a forest. Lin Tian didn't pay it much heed. He casually sat down on a large rock by the side and turned his attention back to the blood mist above the sea. He continued to observe it with the dragon burial scripture, hoping to see the truth. At the same time, more and more gazes fell on him, and the discussions grew louder. A lowly native from a lower realm actually dares to come here so openly. Is he trying to compete with us for the ancestral monarch's immortal manor? He was standing beside Princess Yaoshi a moment ago. Who does he think he is? What right does he have to stand beside Princess Yaoshi? That's right. Quite a few people were discussing the matter, but their voices were suppressed. After all, Lin Tian was standing beside Yu Yaoshi earlier, and it seemed like they were on good terms. While they didn't care about Lin Tian in the slightest, they were still wary of Yu Yaoshi. Chapter 2364. This person was wearing a yellow robe, and he was a little skinny. He was pointing at Lin Tian from afar, and all kinds of unpleasant words came out of his mouth. Lin Tian did not care about the discussion at first, but as this person's words became more and more unpleasant, he tilted his head and glanced at him coldly. Facing Lin Tian's gaze, the yellow-robed young man froze for a moment. However, seeing that many of his companions were around, he did not want to lose face in front of them. In the next moment, he regained his composure, and his voice became louder. He pointed at Lin Tian now and said, "What are you looking at? Did I say anything wrong? You are a native from the lower realm. What right do you have to stand here? What right do you have to stand next to the holy maiden of the Yu family? What's wrong with calling you a toad?" Lin Tian did not say anything, but his gaze became colder. Seeing that Lin Tian didn't say anything and didn't attack, the yellow-clothed young man thought that Lin Tian only dared to be dissatisfied. He couldn't help but become bolder. "Honestly speaking, are you natives from the lower realms as thick-skinned as you? How can you be so thick-skinned as to stand next to the holy maiden of the Yu family? Don't you know what kind of lowly status you have?" As he spoke, he noticed that many people in the surroundings were looking at him. He couldn't help but smile with exultation. He pointed at Lin Tian and continued speaking with a reprimanding look. "Also, you are a slave of the Golden Mark Immortal sect. A slave should act like a slave. How dare you betray your master and come here? Go back to the Golden Mark Immortal sect and accept your punishment." Lin Tian's gaze became even colder. He stood up from the big rock and walked toward the yellow-robed young man. The yellow-robed young man's expression changed, but he quickly said, "What? What do you want to do? Do you want to slap?" Lin Tian appeared in front of the yellow-robed young man in an instant. He raised his hand and slapped the young man, interrupting him. His left hand grabbed the young man's collar and pulled him closer. His right hand conjured light and slapped the young man fiercely. Slap! 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 Blood mixed with teeth floated out. "You dare to hit him?" Around them, when the yellow-robed man's companions saw this scene, they immediately took action and attacked Lin Tian. However, in the next moment, the group of people let out miserable cries. Just as they approached Lin Tian, they were sent flying by the aura that naturally lingered around Lin Tian's body. All of them coughed up blood in the distance, and fainted in the blink of an eye. At the same time, Lin Tian continued to slap the yellow-robed man's face until blood flowed from his mouth and nose and he fainted. Then, he threw the yellow-robed man away, and the man fell to the ground like a pile of mud. This place instantly became silent. Everyone looked at Lin Tian. At this time, their expressions couldn't help but slightly change. They never thought that Lin Tian would be so domineering, actually daring to directly make a move here. "You're just a lowly native to begin with. Now that you've been poked in your sore spot after speaking a few words of truth, your humiliation has turned into anger?" A mocking voice sounded. Not far away, a young man in a luxurious robe walked over with a look of disdain on his face. Behind him were 3 attendants in black armor. Xiangqingyi! At this place, many people's expressions changed. Some of the people beside the young man even retreated and made way for him. Lin Tian glanced at the young man coldly and walked back to the big rock that he was sitting on previously. Xiangqingyi's expression immediately turned cold. His surname was Xiang, and he was the 3rd young master of the Xiang family in the wilderness. Usually, apart from the few top orthodoxies, who didn't flatter him carefully when they saw him? However, today, a native from the lower domain dared to look at him coldly. Dig out his eyeballs, cut off his limbs, destroy his divine soul, and chop his body into mincemeat to feed the fish. He ordered the attendants behind him. Behind him, one of the 3 attendants immediately walked out. His eyes were cold as he walked toward Lin Tian. Obviously, he was carrying out Xiangqingyi's order. Hey! You're courting death! He's just a native from the lower domain. How dare he be so arrogant? He deserves to die here. Throw him to feed the fish. We're all afraid that he'll contaminate the fish in this world. Around them, many people sneered. Lin Tian was standing beside Yu Yaoshi previously, and their relationship seemed to be quite good. If it were anyone else who attacked Lin Tian, some of them would probably think about the consequences, and whether they would incur Yu Yaoshi's wrath. However, when Xiangqingyi gave the order to attack, these people didn't think about the consequences at all. That was because Xiangqingyi's family wasn't any weaker than Yu Yaoshi's. They were both part of the top 5 orthodoxies. Even if Yu Yaoshi was enraged, she wouldn't be able to do anything to Xiangqingyi. At that moment, the crowd's gaze fell on Lin Tian. It was as if they could already see Lin Tian's miserable ending. It was as if they could already see Lin Tian's divine soul being destroyed, his flesh being crushed, and then being thrown into the sea to feed the fish. Lin Tian's gaze turned completely cold. He stopped and looked at Xiangqingyi again. When the other party insulted him, he only glanced at him coldly. He didn't even want to attack. However, the other party immediately wanted to cut off his limbs, destroy his divine soul, and then chop him into minced meat to feed the fish. It was truly vicious. It was also at this moment that Xiangqingyi's servant approached. His eyes were cold and callous as he slapped his palm toward Lin Tian. A fierce wind swept out from the palm and arrived in front of Lin Tian in the blink of an eye. Lin Tian raised his hand, grabbed the servant's wrist, and twisted it. Pfft! The servant immediately exploded. His divine soul was also shattered. He didn't even have the chance to scream. The yellow-robed youth insulted him and said that his mouth was too cheap. Therefore, he only gave him a vicious slap and didn't kill him. However, this servant was ordered by Xiangqingyi to kill him. Naturally, he wouldn't show any mercy. He would kill for kill. Such a scene caused the crowd of cultivators who were prepared to watch a good show to change their expressions. They couldn't help but tremble. Xiangqingyi's servant was at the peak of the Dao transformation realm. Furthermore, he was from the Xiang family. However, he was killed by Lin Tianyi with just a twist of his wrist. He didn't even have time to scream. What kind of combat power was this? At the same time, Xiangqingyi's expression changed slightly. His 3 servants were not simple. They were extremely powerful and were sent by the family to ensure his safety. However, one of them was killed by Lin Tian so easily. Behind him, the expressions of the other 2 black-armored servants also changed slightly. When they looked at Lin Tian, their eyes narrowed. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. At this moment, his gaze landed on Xiangqingyi, and he walked toward him. The servant who tried to kill him was killed by him. However, he would not let go of Xiangqingyi, who gave the order to kill him. As Lin Tian walked toward him, Xiangqingyi's expression turned even colder. Naturally, he could tell that Lin Tian was preparing to attack. He was just a lowly native from the lower domain. How dare he take the initiative to walk toward him and prepare to attack him? Kill him! He said coldly. He ordered the other 2 servants behind him. However, the 2 servants did not move. One of them said softly, "Third young master, you can't. This person is not simple. We are not his match in a head-on battle." Retreating now is the best choice. The Divine Sun will come here later. It will be easy to kill him when he arrives. The two servants were not ordinary people. From how Lin Tian easily killed the black-armored servant, they could tell how terrifying Lin Tian was. They were definitely not his match. Now, protecting Xiang Qingyi and retreating was the best choice. Xiang Qingyi's expression turned even colder. His cultivation was only at the early stage of Dao transformation. In terms of battle power, he was not even as strong as his two servants. Since the two servants said that they were not his match, he knew that there was no other way. He understood the current situation. Trash! He scolded the two servants. Then, he glanced at Lin Tian viciously. He flicked his sleeves and walked away. Seeing Xiang Qingyi retreat, the two servants heaved a sigh of relief and retreated together. They were really worried that the third young master would not retreat. When the other cultivators saw this scene, they were all shocked. The third young master of the Xiang family had one of his servants killed by a lower domain native. Now he chose to retreat? However, in the next moment, their expressions changed again. This was because Lin Tian's footsteps did not change at all. In a flash, he appeared in front of Xiang Qingyi and the other two servants and blocked their path. What do you want from the lower domain? We are from the Xiang family. This is the third young master of the Xiang family. You better be smart. Let's leave and pretend that nothing happened. Xiang Qingyi's expression was extremely cold. One of the servants beside him said in a low voice. However, at this moment, he did not dare to go overboard. He did not dare to mention that he would take revenge for killing Lin Tian. Lin Tian did not say anything. He raised his hand and grabbed at Xiang Qingyi. How dare you! The two servants immediately shouted. They attacked with all their might at the same time. They slashed out a sky full of killing swords that swept towards Lin Tian. In an instant, the surrounding space was distorted. The sword chi was very frightening. However, the moment the fierce sword chi got close to Lin Tian, it was shattered. Then, the two servants who attacked were sent flying by an invisible force at the same time. Xiang Qingyi was shocked. He immediately attacked. All kinds of magic treasures, immortal weapons, and so on were used to suppress Lin Tian. However, it was useless. All the attacks that got close to Lin Tian were shattered by the aura that naturally surrounded Lin Tian's body. At this moment, Lin Tian's big hand landed in front of him. He grabbed his neck and lifted him up like a chicken. Strands of saint light curled around him and suppressed him. Let go! I am the third young master of the Xiang family. Do you want to die? Xiang Qingyi shouted. He appeared fierce but was cowardly at heart. Lin Tian did not say anything. He held him with his right hand and raised his left hand to slap him. With a slap, 5 clear fingerprints appeared on Xiang Qingyi's face. This scene caused everyone here to violently tremble. Lin Tian had slapped Xiang Qingyi in the face just like that. Xiang Qingyi was the third young master of the Xiang family. Xiang Qingyi was stunned. Then, he was extremely furious. The veins on his forehead throbbed. His eyes were filled with ferocity. How dare you hit me? In his life, no one had ever hit him. Moreover, it was a slap to his face. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. He slapped Xiang Qingyi again. You! Xiang Qingyi trembled violently. He roared angrily and struggled madly. The veins on his forehead were even more obvious, as if they were about to burst. Chapter 2365. The sword gleam was sharp, and the sword chi was oppressive. The moment it slashed down, the surrounding space was completely sealed. Lin Tian tilted his head. The sword gleam brushed past his head and landed in the distance, sinking dozens of meters into the ground. The strength of the sword was evident. Let go! A cold voice rang out. A man in purple walked over from afar. His face was sharp, and his eyes were deep. Xiang Yanfeng! The cultivators couldn't help but tremble at this place. At the same time, Xiang Qingyi revealed a joyful expression. Big brother! When he was suppressed by Lin Tian, He had actually felt some fear in his heart when he was roaring. However, at this moment, that fear had completely disappeared. This was because his elder brother had arrived. Lin Tian was the divine son of this generation of their clan, and he had an illustrious reputation in the entire fifth dimension. Within the same generation, only the divine sons and saintesses of the other four top orthodoxies could compare to him. "Let go!" Xiang Yanfeng spoke again. He didn't directly attack because Lin Tian was strangling Xiang Qingyi's neck. He could tell that if Lin Tian wanted to kill Xiang Qingyi, he couldn't save him. There was no time to save him. Only Lin Tian himself could let go. As he spoke, he looked at Lin Tian. His eyes seemed to contain two sharp blades of destruction. Just his gaze alone caused the surrounding cultivators to tremble in fear. Even some of the peak Dao conversion experts of the older generation were no exception. Lin Tian glanced at him. "Aren't you going to ask what your little brother did first?" From the discussions of these cultivators and Xiang Qingyi's words, he could roughly guess Xiang Yanfeng's identity. "Don't you understand what I'm saying?" Xiang Yanfeng's eyes became deeper and colder. A formless, terrifying aura spread out. For a moment, it was as if a terrifying volcano of destruction was about to erupt. The surrounding space trembled violently. Such an aura instantly caused all the cultivators here to tremble in fear. Many of them staggered back. At this moment, Yu Yaoshi and Yu Fengmin seemed to have just finished discussing their family matters, or perhaps they had sensed that something was amiss. Yu Yaoshi quickly walked up to Lin Tian and bellowed, "Xiang Yanfeng, what did you do to my friend?" Xiang Yanfeng glanced at Yu Yaoshi before turning his gaze back to Lin Tian. The aura emanating from his body gradually grew colder and colder. Yu Yaoshi turned to look at Lin Tian, only to see Lin Tian strangling Xiang Qingyi. She asked softly, "What happened?" In fact, the moment she appeared, she saw Lin Tian strangling Xiang Qingyi. However, she instinctively scolded Xiang Yanfeng. After all, Lin Tian was her savior. She subconsciously stood on Lin Tian's side. Since Yu Yaoshi asked about this matter, Lin Tian didn't try to hide anything from her, so he briefly explained the situation to her. "Hedonistic son of a wealthy family. Arrogant no matter where you go." After hearing Lin Tian's words, Yu Yaoshi didn't hold back at all. She turned to Lin Tian now and whispered, "Xiang Qingyi isn't much, but that Xiang Yanfeng isn't simple. He's the godson of the Xiang clan, and his battle prowess is terrifying. Why don't—" She paused for a moment before continuing. "Why don't we let him go?" Lin Tian knew that Yu Yaoshi was doing this for his own good. She didn't want him to be in danger and be targeted by the Xiang clan, but he still shook his head. He didn't take the initiative to provoke others, but he wasn't afraid of anyone either. "Let go!" Another cold voice sounded. Xiang Yanfeng spoke once more, and the aura emanating from his body grew even colder. "Lowly native! Let go of your filthy hands!" Xiang Qingyi was being choked by Lin Tian as he glared at Lin Tian. With the appearance of Xiang Yanfeng, his fear of Lin Tian had completely disappeared. He was very clear about how powerful this godson of his clan was. His battle prowess was shocking. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. He didn't say anything and directly threw Xiang Qingyi away. At the same time, a 9-colored sword light appeared out of nowhere and pierced through Xiang Qingyi. Then, it dragged his body and fell into the sea not far away. His body exploded in the air above the sea that was filled with poisonous blood mist, turning into pieces of flesh that fell into the sea. His divine soul was naturally annihilated by the sword as well. In an instant, everyone in this place trembled violently. "Kill, kill, kill!" Everyone was trembling, and their expressions changed greatly. They never thought that Lin Tian would be so daring. He actually killed the Xiang clan's third young master, Xiang Qingyi, right in front of the Xiang clan's godson. Even Yu Yaoshi was shocked. Although she had sensed that Lin Tian wanted to kill Xiang Qingyi, she never thought that Lin Tian would really kill Xiang Qingyi in such a forceful and decisive manner. "Third young master!" In the distance, Xiang Qingyi's 2 servants, who had been sent flying, happened to be walking back with great difficulty. When they saw this scene, their expressions immediately changed. One of them could not help but cry out. Their clan's third young master had been killed just like that. Rumble! A cold aura immediately intertwined and swept across the sky. Xiang Yanfeng moved. His eyes were cold, but there wasn't a trace of anger in them. Obviously, he didn't care about Xiang Qingyi's life. After all, they weren't blood brothers. But even so, the two of them were still cousins in the end. Lin Tian had killed his cousin in front of him just like that. Lin Tian had completely disregarded him and the Xiang clan. Outside his body, strands of cold, murderous aura circled around him, causing the air to distort. Step by step, he closed in on Lin Tian. Obviously, he wanted to kill Lin Tian. Xiang Qingyi deserved to die. Don't even think of touching my friend. Yu Yaoshi stood out immediately. An aura that wasn't any weaker than Xiang Yanfeng spread out and stood in front of Lin Tian. Thank you? Lin Tian spoke. He placed his hand on Yu Yaoshi's shoulder and pulled her behind him. But there's no need. As he spoke, he also moved. Step by step, he walked towards Xiang Yanfeng, who was closing in on him. The two walked towards each other, face to face. He wants to fight the divine son of the Xiang clan head-on? He's courting death. He'll die even if he doesn't move. The moment he offended Xiang Qingyi, he was destined to be killed by the Xiang clan. Moreover, he killed Xiang Qingyi. That's the third young master of the Xiang clan. The divine son of the Xiang clan will definitely kill him. Quite a number of cultivators were discussing amongst themselves. Many of them were mocking Lin Tian, but even more of them had very cold looks in their eyes. They subconsciously felt a sense of resistance towards Lin Tian, a cultivator from the fourth dimension. After Lin Tian killed a peak Dao transformation expert and Xiang Qingyi, although these people were wary of Lin Tian, they were even more conflicted. They felt that Lin Tian was obviously from the lower realm, yet he dared to be so arrogant. Everyone hoped that Lin Tian would die here. At this moment, Xiang Yanfeng walked to about 10 feet away from Lin Tian. Holy light intertwined, forming a storm of killing intent. The storm of killing intent swept towards Lin Tian. The surrounding space was completely sealed. Such killing intent caused the crowd of cultivators to tremble involuntarily. It was too powerful and shocking. In the blink of an eye, the storm of killing intent swept towards Lin Tian. Space distorted inch by inch. The black hair in front of Lin Tian's forehead danced wildly in the wind, but his expression didn't change. In fact, his footsteps didn't change at all. He walked forward in a straight line. The aura that naturally intertwined around his body vibrated, shattering the storm of killing intent. Then, in the next moment, his footsteps changed slightly. It was as if he was stepping on the nodes of heaven and earth. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Xiang Yanfeng and slapped him. Moreover, the speed of this slap was frighteningly fast. Xiang Yanfeng's pupils constricted. He clearly saw the slap coming, but his reaction and defense speed couldn't keep up. Slap! The crisp sound of a slap was heard. Xiang Yanfeng was sent flying. The slap landed solidly on his right cheek. In an instant, the entire place was dead silent. The crowd of cultivators trembled violently. Just now, some of the cultivators who were sneering at Lin Tian and thought that Lin Tian would be killed by Xiang Yanfeng immediately turned pale. They never expected that the powerful Xiang Yanfeng, the current generation divine son of the Xiang family, would be slapped by Lin Tian in just one move. Divine son? How is this possible? The two attendants who had been following Xiang Qingyi were shocked. When they saw this scene, they felt as if they were in a dream. Even Yu Yaoshi couldn't help but be moved. When Lin Tian killed a few black-clothed men to save her, she already guessed that Lin Tian's combat strength wouldn't be weaker than the divine sons and saintesses of the top orthodoxies. However, when she saw this scene, she couldn't help but gasp. That Xiang Yanfeng was slapped by Lin Tian as soon as he made his move. Boom! Divine radiance surged from afar. Xiang Yanfeng steadied himself. His expression turned ugly. His eyes turned even colder, and his killing intent became even more intense. I'll kill you, he said. As the current generation divine son of the Xiang family, he was slapped by Lin Tian in front of everyone. Outside his body, divine radiance surged, and dense killing lights swept towards Lin Tian at the first instant. The killing intent was dozens of times stronger than the previous storm of killing intent. Crack! 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 Crisp sounds rang out one after another. Under this killing light, the solid void of the fifth dimension was continuously disintegrated and annihilated. Lin Tian didn't say anything. He smashed everything with a slap. Then, he moved again. His steps seemed slow, but his speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Xiang Yanfeng and slapped him again. When he was still in the fourth dimension, he killed the Reincarnation King. During the 1 year that he accompanied Wu Yi, Ruoxian, and Ji Yu to travel the primordial universe, not only did he comprehend reincarnation, but he also created a movement technique. He combined it with the yin-yang steps and other movement techniques that he had comprehended. During that 1 year, he created his own movement technique, which he named the reincarnation steps. At this time, the movement technique he used was the reincarnation steps. 1. It was an ordinary slap, but it caused a buzzing sound to ring out. Xiang Yanfeng's eyes were cold. This slap was almost exactly the same as before. This time, he raised his hand to block it. However, it was also at this moment that Lin Tian's other hand had already been raised, and with a swing of his hand, he delivered another slap. Smack! Another slap landed solidly on Xiang Yanfeng's left cheek. Chapter 2366. A resounding slap rang out, and Xiang Yanfeng was once again sent flying. This time, there were drops of blood floating in the air. It was very eye-catching. The surrounding cultivators' expressions changed again. How long had it been? Xiang Yanfeng, the divine son of the Xiang clan, had been slapped twice by Lin Tian. Boom! Saint energy roared. Xiang Yanfeng stabilized his body, and the saint aura around him grew stronger. When he looked at Lin Tian again, his expression was even colder, and his killing intent was fierce. A series of holy blades of slaughter appeared behind him. Each of the holy blades seemed to be able to cut through everything. It was obvious that this was a very powerful spell. At the same time, the aura of order intertwined and surrounded his body. He walked over step by step. As he walked, the killing blades behind him became more terrifying, and the aura of order became stronger. In the next moment, clanging sounds could be heard, and the dense killing blades slashed toward Lin Tian. At the same time, the light of order also pressed down, sealing the surrounding void. Lin Tian's eyes flashed. At this moment, Xiang Yanfeng finally made him feel a little pressured. Of course, it was only a little. He did not make any extra movements. He activated the reincarnation sword technique, and a large amount of reincarnation sword light swept out to meet Xiang Yanfeng's killing blades. At the same time, he summoned the divine chains of order, and they clanked as they pressed down from all directions. In the blink of an eye, the two collided. The killing blades and the sharp sword light collided, and the order clashed against the order. At this moment, the space in this place was distorted and shattered inch by inch. Soon, dozens of breaths passed. Lin Tian dodged Xiang Yanfeng's killing blades and used the reincarnation steps to appear in front of him. He condensed the Saint Energy Light sword in his hand and slashed down. This sword strike was both fast and powerful. It forcefully slashed apart the protective light barrier around Xiang Yan's body and left behind a glaring sword wound on his chest. A large amount of blood splashed out, and one could even faintly see the sternum, heart, and other organs within. This is the strongest of the Xiang clan's younger generation? Not much, Lin Tian said calmly as he raised his lightsaber. At this place, the group of cultivators was even more shocked. The dignified divine son of the Xiang family, who was clearly at the peak of the Dao transformation realm, was actually suppressed by an early-stage Dao transformation realm cultivator from the four-dimensional world and was injured time and time again. Xiang Yanfeng's expression turned even colder. The wound on his chest healed in the blink of an eye as he unleashed all kinds of great techniques. In the blink of an eye, the sky began to tremble violently. All kinds of ancient runes appeared beside him, and the aura of order erupted like a volcano. A huge world of light appeared, and within it was a hazy light mist. Divine chains of order circled around it. Sainthood treasure region! A cultivator couldn't help but exclaim. Clearly, he recognized the light world that Xian Yanfeng brought out. His face was filled with reverence. Be careful, this is Xian Yanfeng's order theurgy. It is said to be able to seal everything. Don't let yourself be contaminated by the light realm. Otherwise, your cultivation and saint energy will be sealed in the blink of an eye. Even your pure flesh will be suppressed in an instant. Yu Yaoshi transmitted her voice to Lin Tian now in a serious tone. At this time, Lin Tian naturally sensed how terrifying Xian Yanfeng's order theurgy was. Even an early-stage all-creation realm cultivator would feel fear and trepidation when facing it. However, his expression didn't change at all. There wasn't the slightest bit of concern or fear. He was calm and indifferent. This is your strongest technique? He spoke. Strands of saint runes of order intertwined around his body as he walked towards Xian Yanfeng with steady steps. Xian Yanfeng's skin was as sharp as a knife, and his eyes were bone-chilling. He walked towards Lin Tian step by step. The two of them walked towards each other, and the space around them crackled as the void distorted. Then, in the next moment, the two of them sped up. Their figures blurred as they collided with each other. Xian Yanfeng's sainthood treasure domain was shrouded in a hazy light of order. Divine chains of order rattled as they attacked Lin Tian again and again, intertwining with terrifying sealing power and terrifying destructive power. Lin Tian's saint runes of order revolved around his body, completely ignoring his opponent's order theurgy. He clashed head-on time and time again, even charging into his opponent's sainthood treasure domain. With a wave of his hand, he destroyed large amounts of hazy light and divine chains of order. This scene caused the crowd to stare blankly. Xian Yanfeng's order theurgy was said to be able to seal everything. Even the slightest bit of light from the treasure domain would cause trouble. But now, it didn't have the slightest effect on Lin Tian. Xian Yanfeng's eyes narrowed. He activated the sainthood treasure domain even more, and the hazy light and divine chains of order pressed down on Lin Tian. However, the saint runes of order around Lin Tian's body dispelled everything. Clang! Lin Tian used the saint runes of order to dispel Xian Yanfeng's order theurgy. He found a suitable opportunity, and raised his right hand, slashing a large amount of reincarnation sword aura straight towards Xian Yanfeng. The sword aura was dense. With a poof, blood splattered. Xian Yanfeng's entire left arm was pierced through, and he was immediately sent flying. Lin Tian's thoughts moved slightly, and the reincarnation god slaying technique was silently used. An invisible killing power pressed towards his opponent. In the blink of an eye, the invisible killing power broke through Xian Yanfeng's body and struck his soul, causing him to let out a muffled groan. Outside his body, his aura instantly became chaotic, and his sainthood treasure domain became very unstable. Lin Tian condensed a sword of light in his hand, and with one slash, he shattered the entire sainthood treasure domain. In an instant, he arrived before Xian Yanfeng and casually slashed down. With a clang, he slashed out with his sword, but countless sword lights appeared and trapped Xian Yanfeng in the blink of an eye. Scram! Xian Yanfeng stabilized his body and shouted coldly. His majestic aura vibrated, and all the sword auras were crushed. Holy light buzzed, and a treasured cauldron rushed out of his body. It was covered in ancient runes and divine seals, as if it could suppress everything in the world. The immortal offering cauldron actually forced Xian Yanfeng to. At this place, the cultivators' hearts trembled. Lin Tian, who came from the four-dimensional sky, was only at the early stage Dao transformation realm. But now, he had forced the Xiang family's divine son, who was at the peak of the Dao transformation realm, to use this treasured cauldron. This was a quasi-all-creation level treasure weapon. The immortal offering cauldron was covered in ancient runes. The moment it appeared, It intertwined with an extremely sharp aura, and it hung above Xiang Yanfeng's head. Looking at Lin Tian, Xiang Yanfeng's eyes were cold. With a thought, the immortal offering cauldron immediately pressed down on Lin Tian. The entire space trembled, and the immortal offering cauldron pressed down as if the sky was falling. Gusts of hurricanes swept up, and a terrifying destructive aura was mixed together, pressing down on Lin Tian. Lin Tian's eyes were indifferent. He could feel the terror of this treasured cauldron, but he still did not care at all. With a clang, the reincarnation sword floated out of his body. It was covered in runes, and it moved forward with his thought. In the blink of an eye, the reincarnation sword and the immortal offering cauldron collided. Clang! 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 The sound of metal cracking could be heard, and electric arcs intertwined in the surroundings, making crackling sounds. He blocked the quasi-all-creation level immortal offering cauldron. This? The cultivators were shocked. At this moment, with a clang, the sword roared. With a thought, Lin Tian activated the reincarnation sword with the reincarnation sword art. Immediately, a monstrous sword aura burst out and landed on the immortal offering cauldron. With a crack, the immortal offering cauldron was shattered. At the same time, the reincarnation sword vibrated again, and the sword aura surged. With a poof, it pierced through Xiang Yanfeng. Dazzling blood splattered in the sky. Divine Sun! In the distance, the two servants who had followed Xiang Qingyi at the beginning trembled violently. Their clan's divine son had been injured by Lin Tian time and time again. Now, even the quasi-all-creation level immortal offering cauldron had been shattered. He was no match for Lin Tian. At this moment, Lin Tian stepped forward. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of the flying Xiang Yanfeng. Black lightning immediately surged out. The fifth stage of the five heaven-shaking lightning technique was activated. At this moment, he activated one of the ultimate killing techniques, drawing out a black sea of destructive lightning. At this moment, together with the reincarnation sword, it trapped Xiang Yanfeng within. The aura of extermination pressed down mercilessly from all directions. The power of the lightning and the power of the divine sword suppressed everything. Xiang Yanfeng's clothes were stained with blood. Naturally, he could feel the terror of this attack. It was a sure kill attack. He looked at Lin Tian, and his eyes became even colder. With a hum, a space portal appeared behind him. He looked at Lin Tian coldly. Without saying anything, he was swallowed by the space portal and disappeared. He escaped? The divine son of the Xiang clan, he actually. At this place, the crowd of cultivators was filled with disbelief. The powerful Xiang Yanfeng, the divine son of the Xiang clan of the wilderness, had actually escaped from the hands of someone from the lower realm. Lin Tian's expression was indifferent. The black sea of lightning intertwined around his body. The pupils of his left and right eyes began to change. However, in the next moment, these changes gradually stopped. Xiang Yanfeng had used a special defensive technique to escape from Lin Tian's sure-kill attack. It seemed that he had escaped into the void of this world. Lin Tian originally wanted to use his Rinnegan, an Eye of Destiny, to capture him. However, after thinking about it, he decided against it. Rinnegan and Eye of Destiny, Reincarnation and Destiny, these were his trump cards. He didn't want to reveal them for the time being. The black sea of lightning dissipated. He kept the reincarnation sword in his body and turned around to walk towards Yi Yaoshi. The crowd of cultivators on both sides couldn't help but tremble. Many of them were already far away from Lin Tian, but at this moment, they couldn't help but retreat. Their faces were filled with fear. This was especially so for those who were secretly discussing and looking down on Lin Tian. At this moment, their faces were completely pale. They never imagined that Lin Tian, who came from the fourth dimension, would possess such terrifying strength. Even the divine son of the Xiang clan of the wilderness, Xiang Yanfeng, wasn't a match for him. Lin Tian didn't care about these people's reactions. He quickly walked up to Yaoshi. You're simply... Shock was written all over Yaoshi's beautiful face. The divine son of the Xiang clan, one of the few young primes of this generation in the fifth dimension, was at the peak of the Tao Revolution realm. He was much stronger than Lin Tian. Yet he was forced to flee by Lin Tian. Very strong, Yu Fengyin said. Lin Tiantan smiled. It's just SOSO. What do you mean SOSO? Don't be so modest. Yu Yaoshi rolled her eyes at him. Coupled with her beautiful face, she looked very charming. When I was chased by those Peak Tao Revolution realm cultivators and was saved by you, I knew that you were very strong. I thought that you wouldn't be any weaker than the divine sons and saintesses of the top orthodoxies. However, I didn't expect that I was wrong. You're clearly much stronger than I thought. The divine son of the Xiang clan was forced to flee by you just like that. Indeed, you don't have to be modest. You're really amazing. Yu Fengyin looked at Lin Tian and said, in the entire fifth dimension, other than that person from the divine palace of myriad beginnings who grasps the laws of the fifth dimension, there's probably no one in the younger generation who can defeat you. Lin Tian originally had a faint smile on his face. However, after hearing Yu Fengyin's words, his smile froze for a moment. A strange light flashed across his eyes. P.S. Unknowingly, it's already been 3 years since we've been Divine Kings of 10 Directions. During these 3 years, I'd like to thank all my brothers and sisters for your company and support. Thank you all! Now that it's the 3rd anniversary of our Divine Kings of 10 Directions, the net has organized a 3rd anniversary event for us. It will start at 19 p.m. sharp. The event will be broadcasted live. The location of the event will be the Divine Kings of 10 Directions circle on the Vertical and Horizontal Novel app. Everyone, open the Vertical and Horizontal Novel app. There's an animation prompt. After clicking on it, you'll see our Divine Kings of 10 Directions circle. After that, you can find our event post at the top of the circle and enter it. Chapter 2367. You were shocked by that person from the Divine Palace of 10,000 Beginnings? Seeing Lin Tian's strange expression, Yu Fengyin said, actually, there's no need for that. Your strength is already very strong. Currently, in the entire 5th dimension, the only person we know of that has grasped the laws of the 5th dimension is that person from the Divine Palace of 10,000 Beginnings. Furthermore, that person has only barely grasped the laws of the 5th dimension. Lin Tian's expression returned to normal. With a faint smile, he asked, is it the divine child from the Divine Palace of 10,000 Beginnings? What laws of the 5th dimension did he grasp? The 5th dimension had 5 laws of the 5th dimension. They were the inverse Tao, star creation, dark light, 10,000 beginnings, and undying. They could be considered as the pillars of the 5th dimension. Each of them possessed extremely terrifying abilities. Once one grasped them, their battle strength would be practically limitless. At this time, he didn't know which one the person from the Divine Palace of 10,000 Beginnings controlled. Is it the Divine Palace of 10,000 Beginnings? He asked. You're quite good at guessing. It's indeed the Divine Palace of 10,000 Beginnings. However, you were wrong about one thing. The person from the Divine Palace of 10,000 Beginnings who grasps the laws of the 5th dimension isn't a divine child, but a saintess. She's known as the number 1 pearl of the 5th dimension. Beside him, Yu Yaoshi opened her mouth and said, furthermore, the reason why this lineage is named this way is because the founder of this lineage once grasped the Divine Palace of 10,000 Beginnings. Back then, when he created this lineage, he directly named it the Divine Palace of 10,000 Beginnings. After creating this lineage, the founder of this lineage also left behind his experience in comprehending the law of all beginnings. He made many records in hopes that in the future, there would be more people who grasped the laws of the Divine Palace of 10,000 Beginnings. However, it's a pity that even with these records, no one from the Divine Palace of 10,000 Beginnings was able to grasp the laws of the 5th dimension. After all, the law of all beginnings is one of the 5 laws of the 5th dimension. Even with the experience of the predecessors as a reference, it's naturally difficult to grasp it. Until this generation, this bloodline produced a Luoxian. Her potential is extremely frightening. After being designated as the Saintess of the Divine Palace, she obtained the qualifications to comprehend the records left behind by the primogenitor of the Myriad Beginnings Divine Palace. Then, relying on her frightening potential and the records left behind by the primogenitor of the Myriad Beginnings Divine Palace, she spent more than 10 years in seclusion and finally barely grasped the laws of the fifth dimension. She continued, "This kind of law is actually similar to the endless divine Tao. Both of them can turn all things back to zero, but the degree of power is different. If someone of the same level of cultivation uses them, in terms of power, to put it simply, if the endless divine Tao is a drop of water, then the law of all beginnings is a boundless galaxy. The difference between the two is like heaven and earth. The Saintess of the Divine Palace of all beginnings grasped such a law when she was at the peak of the profound heaven realm. Now, she is truly the number one law in the fifth dimension." Lin Tian was slightly surprised. He had guessed that the law of the fifth dimension grasped by the person from the Divine Palace of all beginnings, but he didn't expect that the one who grasped it would be a woman of this bloodline. Moreover, she was the number one pearl of the fifth dimension. This was somewhat surprising. However, although he was slightly surprised, he didn't pay too much attention to it. Soon, he regained his composure. Above the ancestral Lord Sea domain, a gentle breeze swept by. The blood-colored mist was dissipating bit by bit. He looked at the blood-colored mist and quietly observed it. Occasionally, he would chat with Yu Yaoshi about some simple matters. Time passed day by day. More and more cultivators gradually arrived at this place from outside the ancestral Lord Sea domain. Another day passed, and 3 important figures arrived one after another. 2 men and 1 woman walked in from 3 different directions. Each of them had powerful attendants following behind them. A black-clothed man, a green-clothed man, and a red-clothed woman appeared. All of them were full of vitality. As soon as they appeared, they immediately attracted the gazes of most cultivators. This was especially true for the male cultivators. Almost all of their gazes landed on the red-clothed woman. Most of them were infatuated with her. The black-clothed man is the divine child of the Heaven's Guide Divine Palace, Yuan Ziqing. This bloodline's Heaven's Guide divine art is mysterious and unfathomable. The green-clothed man is the divine child of the 100-sage ancient pavilion, Luo's size. This bloodline's 100-sage ancient technique is ever-changing and extremely shocking. Yu Yaoshi introduced them to Lin Tian. Finally, her gaze landed on the red-clothed woman. This is the current saintess of the Divine Palace of all beginnings, Luo Xian. What do you think? Isn't she beautiful? Lin Tian's gaze swept past Yuan Ziqing and Luo's size before landing on Luo Xian. Her figure was sculpted from the golden ratio. Her face was as beautiful as jade. Her red robe accentuated her curvaceous figure to the fullest. Her jet-black hair cascaded down her shoulders, revealing her fair neck and shoulders. It was enough to cause one's imagination to run wild. He withdrew his gaze and said to Yu Yaoshi with a faint smile, "Can't compare to you." In fact, Luo Xian was much prettier than Yu Yaoshi. However, when he observed her, he saw a sense of superiority in her eyes. She looked down on the cultivators who were looking at her from the bottom of her heart. This contempt wasn't obvious, but she didn't try to hide it either. At the very least, he could tell that she wasn't a good person. When he said that Luo Xian's beauty couldn't compare to Yu Yaoshi's, he wasn't referring to her appearance, but her spirit. With a simple feeling, he could tell that Yu Yaoshi's spirit was much stronger than Luo Xian's. Yu Yaoshi was taken aback. Her beautiful cheeks couldn't help but blush. Following which, she coughed dryly, causing the redness on her face to dissipate. She then spoke up once more. "I didn't expect you to be so good at coaxing girls." Lin Tian naturally knew what she was thinking. She thought that he was praising her on purpose. He smiled and didn't say anything else. Scram! A loud noise came from afar. A golden-robed man with his hands behind his back and a cultivation at the mid-Dao revolution stage drove away a group of ordinary cultivators. He was very arrogant. Behind him was a gray-robed man and 9 middle-aged servants. The ordinary cultivators who were driven away all had anger in their eyes. However, they didn't dare to say anything. They were clearly afraid of the golden-robed man. Lin Tian looked over and paused for a moment. His eyes narrowed, and a ray of light intertwined in them. Yu Yaoshi said from the side, "That's the son of the illusion sorcerer sect master, Mu Guanqing. He's many times more arrogant and despotic than Xiang Qingyi. He's done a lot of bullying, and the number of evil deeds he's committed is innumerable. However, because of his father, almost no one in the 5 great orthodoxies dares to provoke him." She continued, "His father, the current sect master of the illusion sorcerer sect, is infinitely close to the 5th dimension. It's said that he'll break through in at most 10 years. Among the 5 fifth dimension ancestors of the 5 great orthodoxies, no one is his match." Lin Tian nodded, but his gaze fell on the gray-robed man standing behind Mu Guanqing. "This person is—" Yu Yaoshi glanced at him and seemed to know something. "It's said that he's the illegitimate son of the illusion sorcerer sect master and an ordinary female disciple. His mother, the female disciple, has already passed away. The sect master named him Mu Fengqing. It's not hard to understand the meaning behind the name. He wants him to serve the son of the first wife, Mu Guanqing, forever." She continued, "In the illusion sorcerer sect, his status is very awkward. He's the son of the sect master, but because he's a bastard, some ordinary disciples look down on him." Mu Fengqing. Lin Tian muttered. His gaze fell on the gray-robed Mu Fengqing, and the light in his eyes intensified. Yu Yaoshi noticed a change in his expression. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." Lin Tian shook his head and retracted his gaze. The light in his eyes faded as he looked back at the ancestral Lord Sea domain. The ancestral Lord Sea region was vast and boundless. Bloody mist lingered above it, causing the air to sizzle. As time passed, the blood mist gradually dissipated, becoming thinner and thinner. In the blink of an eye, 9 days had passed since Zhang Xian and Yu Yaoshi first arrived at the ancestral Lord Sea region. The blood mist above the ancestral Lord Sea region had finally dissipated, and not a single trace of it could be seen on the surface of the boundless sea. "We can go in now." Some people were excited. The saintess of all beginnings Luo Xian, the 100 saints divine child Luo Sais, the heaven-guiding divine child Yuan Ziqing, and the young master of the illusion sorcerer divine sect, Mu Guanqing, entered the ancestral Lord Sea region one after another. Immediately after, even more people rushed to the center of the ancestral Lord Sea region. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the cultivators who had been waiting here at the beginning were gone. Lin Tian, Yu Yaoshi, Yu Fengyin, and several of Yu Fengyin's powerful attendants also stepped into the ancestral Lord Sea region. "Yaoshi, you and Lin Tian, take care of yourselves," Yu Fengyin said to Yu Yaoshi. She nodded at Lin Tian before instructing her attendants to change direction and head toward the south of the ancestral Lord Sea region, disappearing in the blink of an eye. "She's not going with you?" Lin Tian asked. "Yeah, she's not going with us," Yu Yaoshi said. "This ancestral Lord Sea region is very vast, and there are immortal opportunities and divine treasures everywhere. If we move separately, we might be able to get more results," she said. "Don't worry, Sister Yin's strength isn't much weaker than mine, and she has powerful secret treasures protecting her. Under normal circumstances, there won't be any problems." Lin Tian nodded and said, "It seems like you two have a good relationship." "Of course we do. Sister Yin was born a year before me, and we practically grew up together," Yu Yaoshi said. She was a little curious. "Why are you asking this? You don't seem to be someone who's interested in such trivial matters." "Nothing, I'm just asking." Lin Tian smiled and glanced at the direction Yu Fengyin left, then headed straight to the center of the ancestral Lord Sea region. Chapter 2368. Lin Tian smiled upon hearing Yu Yaoshi's words, but he didn't say anything. The two of them walked on the surface of the sea. Their speed wasn't fast, but it wasn't slow either. It didn't take long for them to cover a large distance. Ahead of them, the sea began to boil. Tornadoes began to wreak havoc on the surface of the sea, emanating a terrifying aura. Furthermore, in a place further away, streaks of lightning could be seen interweaving. It was hard to tell where they came from, but the might of the lightning was frightening. This was a natural phenomenon of destruction. Even a peak Tao Revolution cultivator would die tragically if they were to encounter it. Lin Tiantan and Yu Yaoshi were very powerful, so they weren't afraid of these destructive phenomena. However, they didn't deliberately approach them. Instead, they avoided them and continued forward. In front of them, waves suddenly appeared on the surface of the sea. The waves splashed as a dense group of black shadows rushed over. The black figures were hidden underwater, but they soon surfaced. They were a school of strange fish covered in black scales. They were about 5 inches long, and their teeth were extremely sharp, as if they could bite through anything. The black figures were made up entirely of these strange fish, and it was difficult to count how many of them there were. At this moment, they clearly saw Lin Tiantan and Yu Yaoshi as prey, and they charged toward the two of them ferociously. Blood devourer demons. They are savage and love to eat. They usually move in groups, and their strength isn't anything special. However, they are frighteningly fast in the water. Even ordinary Pure Sun Realm experts would find it hard to match them, Yu Yaoshi said. That's right. While she was speaking, the school of blood devourer demons had already closed in on them, causing huge splashes of water to appear. A faint halo spread out from Lin Tiantan's body, forcing all of the blood devourer demons back into the sea. The densely packed blood devourer demons gathered together like giant piranhas on the Milky Way imperial star. They clearly sensed how terrifying Lin Tiantan was, and they struggled to escape. However, under Lin Tiantan's halo, they couldn't escape. Why did you seal them? Can't you just kill them? Yu Yaoshi asked curiously. Lin Tiantan chuckled as he crouched down with his back facing Yu Yaoshi. At an angle that Yu Yaoshi couldn't see, the Saint Reincarnation runes in his right eye emerged, causing the blood-devouring beasts to shudder. In the next moment, the Saint Reincarnation rune in his right eye quickly dissipated. He stood up and dispersed the aura around him. Instantly, the group of blood-devouring demons fled at a frightening speed, disappearing in a flash. You let him go? Yu Yaoshi was a little doubtful. This was a group of ferocious demons. In the beginning, she thought that Lin Tian would directly annihilate them when they charged over like this, yet she never expected that Lin Tian would first restrain them before releasing all of them. This caused her to be bewildered, and she kept feeling that it was slightly strange. They're just a bunch of small fish. There's no need to kill them. Lin Tian smiled. As his comprehension of the path of reincarnation deepened, his eye of reincarnation had grown stronger than when he was in the fourth dimension. He now had the ability to control ordinary lifeforms and turn them into his reincarnation puppets to do his bidding. Previously, when he had his back facing Yu Yaoshi, he had used his eye of reincarnation on the group of blood-devouring demons. Under the effects of his eye of reincarnation, the blood-devouring demons had all been turned into his reincarnation puppets. Under the effects of his eye of reincarnation, he was able to see through the blood-devouring demons' perception and vision clearly. The reason for this was due to the speed of the blood-devouring demons. Their speed in the water couldn't even compare to that of ordinary pure young experts. In this part of the sea, they would be able to swiftly scout the area for him. Naturally, this would be of great use to him. It would allow him to swiftly gain a rough understanding of the various regions in the sea, making it much easier for him to carry out his missions in the future. On top of that, he might just be lucky enough to find all kinds of rare treasures. You sure are protective of Lil Dong, Yu Yaoshi remarked. She paused for a moment before continuing. That doesn't seem to be a small animal. Don't think too much about it. Lin Tian chuckled as he beckoned Yu Yaoshi to continue forward. The two of them increased their speed slightly, and before long, they had traversed quite a distance and arrived at the center of the sea. It was also at this moment that a massive island appeared before them. It stretched for an unknown distance from the north to the south. Ancient trees were erected on the island, and every single one of them was astonishingly tall. They exuded an extremely frightening aura of time. At the same time, all kinds of natural phenomena of destruction appeared in the periphery of the massive island. There was a frightening lightning field mixed with dense lightning, a violent sea vortex with frightening whirlpools, a destructive water pillar that soared into the sky, and even more phenomena of destruction. All of them carried an extremely frightening aura. Lin Tian's eyes glinted. Without a doubt, that massive island was where the Seven Treasures Ancestor Lord's immortal abode was located. "We're here! It's on that island!" Yu Yaoshi exclaimed. At the same time, many cultivators had already gathered in this place. Everyone's gaze fell on the huge island ahead. Naturally, they knew that the Seven Treasures Ancestor Lord's immortal abode was on that island. The eyes of all the cultivators were burning with passion, as if they could already see the divine treasures on the giant island. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. A series of whooshes took place as groups of cultivators made their way to the island. Although there were all kinds of terrifying strange phenomena on the periphery of the island, these strange phenomena did not cover the entire island in all directions. There were still many empty spaces, enough for people to pass through safely. Yu Yaoshi turned to Lin Tian and said, "We should also." As she said this, her expression suddenly changed. Lin Tian noticed the change in her expression and asked, "What's wrong?" A jade appeared in Yu Yaoshi's hand and said, "This is a type of artifact that Big Sister Yin and I use to communicate." As she spoke, she scanned the surroundings and pointed in a direction to Lin Tian now. "Just now, Big Sister Yin sent me a message through the artifact. She said that there's an extremely important matter and wants me to make a trip to a strait about 1,000,000 li away from here." As she spoke, she glanced at the massive island and said to Lin Tian now, "The Seven Treasures Ancestor Lord's immortal abode is on that island. You should go first. I'll make a trip to the strait there and then come back to find you." At present, many cultivators had already arrived on the massive island. The Seven Treasures Ancestor Lord's fifth-dimensional artifacts, 7-star classics, and other divine pills and treasures were all on that island. Now that she was here, she had to go because of Yu Fengyin's message. However, there was no need for Lin Tian to go with her. That might cause Lin Tian to miss the opportunity to obtain the treasures. Lin Tian naturally knew what Yu Yaoshi was thinking. He glanced at the direction Yu Yaoshi had pointed at and said, "I'll go with you." As he said this, the blood-devourer goblins that he had used reincarnation eye technique on immediately flew in that direction. "You're going with me?" "No need." Yu Yaoshi was slightly taken aback. Then she shook her head and said, "Since we're already here, the best choice is to enter the Ancestor Lord's immortal abode. There's no need for you to go with me. You'll miss the opportunity to obtain the treasures." She believed that with Lin Tian's strength, he would definitely be able to obtain some treasures in the immortal abode. If he were to leave with her and the treasures in the immortal abode were taken away by someone else, that would be too much of a pity. She would feel very uneasy. "It's fine," Lin Tian now said. "Since it's the fifth dimension Ancestor Lord's immortal abode, it won't be easy to barge into it. The ancient scriptures and treasures inside won't be taken away so easily either. I'll go with you, and then we'll return here together." "You're right. The ancient scriptures and treasures in the Ancestor Lord's immortal abode aren't easy to obtain, but Yu Yaoshi hesitated. "It's fine," Lin Tian said with a smile. Yu Yaoshi still wanted to say something, but Lin Tian interrupted her. In the end, she could only nod. "Then let's make things clear first. If we return and the treasures inside have all been taken away, don't blame me," Yu Yaoshi said softly. "Don't worry," Lin Tian said with a smile. At the same time, a faint glint flashed across his eyes. He glanced at the direction Yu Yaoshi had pointed at earlier and said, "The place your cousin chose. It's not bad." At this very moment, the blood-devouring beast that Zhang Xian had imbued with his eye of reincarnation had already reached the area that Yu Yaoshi had pointed out earlier with a speed surpassing that of a pure Sun Realm cultivator. "That place isn't bad? You haven't even reached it yet, so how do you know that it's not bad?" "What do you mean?" Yu Yaoshi was taken aback. "It's nothing." Lin Tian shook his head. "Let's go." So, He took the lead and headed toward the location Yu Yaoshi had pointed out earlier. Yu Yaoshi paused for a moment before following behind him. With their powerful cultivation, it didn't take long for them to leave the massive island they had previously been on. After a short period of time, a strait appeared before them. There were many small charred islands in the surroundings, and the surface of the sea was tranquil. Yaoshi. Just as the two of them arrived, Yu Fengyin's voice rang out from within the straits. Behind her, there were still a few powerful attendants from before. At this moment, they walked out from the straits and approached before greeting Lin Tian. Big Sis Yin, is there something important? Yu Yaoshi asked with a serious expression. Yu Fengyin replied with a deep voice. We found a secret realm in the center of the strait. It's on par with the Ancestor Lord's immortal abode. Yu Yaoshi's face warped in shock. There was actually a secret realm in the center of the strait that was on par with the Seven Treasures Ancestor's immortal abode? Big Sis Yin, are you sure? Yu Yaoshi couldn't help but take a deep breath. There's no mistaking it. Yu Fengyin nodded solemnly. There's a powerful natural barrier around the secret realm. Even with my strength and the secret artifact in my body, it's still not enough to break it. That's why I called you over. If we work together, we'll definitely be able to break it open. If your friends work together as well, it'll be much easier for us to break the natural barrier. I have a feeling that there are all kinds of unimaginable treasures inside. Yu Yaoshi's eyes lit up. Then, Big Sis Yin, let's head over. Yu Fengyin nodded. She led Yu Yaoshi and Lin Tian into the strait and headed toward the center of the strait. Soon, the group had traveled far into the distance, and they were about to reach the center of the strait. Gradually, the area ahead of them began to open up. The number of charred islands began to dwindle, revealing a vast expanse of flat sea. It's right in the middle of that vast expanse of sea, Yu Fengyin said to Yu Yaoshi with a solemn expression. She gestured for Yu Yaoshi and Lin Tian behind her to head in that direction. Without the slightest hesitation, Yu Yaoshi hurriedly followed behind him. Chapter 2369. Being held back by Lin Tian, Yu Yaoshi was perplexed. What's wrong? At the same time, Yu Fengyin also halted her footsteps and turned to Lin Tian. Fellow Taoist Lin, what's wrong? Lin Tian pulled Yu Yaoshi behind him and looked at Yu Fengyin with a smile. Miss Fengyin, you're willing to make a move personally. Is it because you have absolute confidence? Fengyin won't be able to open the natural barrier outside the dungeon by herself. Didn't I say so earlier? We have to work together in order to have absolute confidence in opening the dungeon, Yu Yaoshi said. Yu Fengyin said as she looked at Lin Tian in confusion. Don't play dumb, I'm not discussing the illusory dungeon with you. Lin Tian looked at her and said, Didn't you summon Yaoshi here so that you can eliminate her? As soon as those words came out, Yu Yaoshi's expression changed. She frowned and asked, Lin Tian, what are you saying? Lin Tian actually said that her cousin Yu Fengyin summoned her here to eliminate her. She couldn't understand why Lin Tian would suddenly say something like that. Yu Fengyin also frowned. Fellow Taoist Lin, what are you saying? Yaoshi is my younger sister, why should I erase? Clang! The sound of a sword echoed. Lin Tian flicked his finger, and the energy of the Divine One's soul art coalesced into a sword, interrupting Yu Fengyin's words. In an instant, the space in the middle of the sea trembled. Killing inscriptions gradually appeared, forming a terrifying killing formation in the blink of an eye. As soon as such a killing formation appeared, Yu Yaoshi's expression changed. To think that there would be such a terrifying killing formation in the middle of the sea in front of her. The killing intent emanating from it could easily kill even an all-creation realm expert. Big Sis Yin, what's going on? Her complexion immediately turned awful. That killing formation clearly wasn't a natural formation. It was as if someone had placed it there from the start. Recalling that Lin Tian had said that Yu Fengyin had called her here to get rid of her, she recalled the assassination attempt a few days ago. Her mind buzzed and her expression turned even uglier. You want to kill me? A few days ago, when my Li clan was ambushed, was it you who instigated it? Yu Fengyin opened her mouth, wanting to defend herself. However, in the end, she didn't say anything because there was no longer any space for her to defend herself. "That's right, I'm the one in charge," she harumphed coldly. The calm expression she had when she was facing Yu Yaoshi and Lin Tian earlier had vanished, replaced by a cold and sinister expression. Hearing Yu Fengyin admit it personally, Yu Yaoshi couldn't help but shudder. "Why? We grew up together. Cultivate together. We are family. Why did you do that?" She clenched her fists. A few days ago, she was ambushed when she went out. She guessed that it was done by people from her clan because only the people from her clan knew about her trip to the ancient mountain. After that, she suspected many people, but she had never suspected Yu Fengyin. Even though they weren't blood-related sisters, she thought that the two of them were no different from blood-related sisters. Yet, what she never expected was that the culprit behind the ambush was actually the person she had always trusted, the person she had always treated as her blood-related sister. Why? She clenched her fists even tighter, to the point where her knuckles were turning white. The person she had always treated as her blood-related sister, the person she trusted so much, was actually bent on killing her. At the same time, she couldn't understand why her cousin whom she trusted so much would do such a thing. Why? You're asking me why? Yu Fengyin's face darkened. My father is clearly older than your father, the eldest son of the clan, so why is your father the one to inherit the position of the clan head? I was born before you, and my strength isn't much weaker than yours. No, I'm not weaker than you at all. Why did the clan make you the holy maiden while I'm inferior to you in every aspect? She sneered coldly. Without you, I would be the current holy maiden of the clan. You Yaoshi was shocked and furious. The position of the clan head was decided by grandfather and the grand elders based on the strength of father and uncle. The clan rules have always stipulated that the holy maiden and holy maiden are the children of the clan head, unless there's someone in the clan who is far stronger than the clan head's children. Do you think that I want to be the holy maiden? In the clan, before you, I've always treated myself as a younger sister, and you as my blood-related sister. All these years, when have I ever disrespected you? All these years, when have I ever presented myself as the holy maiden in front of you? When have you ever been inferior to me in every aspect? Yu Fengyin's face darkened. As long as you're the holy maiden of the clan, I'll always be inferior to you in the eyes of others. She sneered coldly. It doesn't matter if I don't lure you into the killing formation. I can still get rid of you. As soon as she said those words, the 5 attendants who had been following her walked out from behind her. Shocking holy light shone from their bodies, and an incomparably powerful holy might intertwined with one another, causing the surrounding space to tremble and rumble. Yu Yaoshi's expression changed. At this moment, the aura released by the 5 attendants directly sealed the surrounding space. Peak of all creation. Lin Tian's eyes flashed with a strange light. Previously, they used a special secret technique to seal their true cultivation? Before he stepped into the ancestral Lord Sea region, he had seen Yu Fengyin and these attendants. At that time, the 5 of them were clearly only at the Tao Revolution level. But now, their cultivation had become peak all creation. He naturally didn't need to think too much about this matter. Without a doubt, these 5 people had been hiding their true cultivation under Yu Fengyin's surveillance. It seems that you've given them quite a lot of benefits. He looked at Yu Fengyin and said. These 5 attendants weren't from the Yu clan. This was something that he could completely sense. They didn't have a trace of the Yu clan's bloodline aura. They were clearly experts that Yu Fengyin had recruited outside the clan. And this matter was something that even the direct bloodline of some major clans had the qualifications to do, so it wasn't strange at all. However, to have a few peak all-creation experts seal their true cultivation and serve as attendants by one's side, the price wasn't something that just anyone could bear. Even at death's door, you don't seem to be afraid at all. Considering your identity as a native of the 4th dimension, you're really not bad. You're worthy of praise. Yu Fengyin looked coldly at Lin Tian. She paused for a moment before saying, However, before I kill you, there's something that I'm really curious about. She said. It seems like you didn't start suspecting me after coming here. You seem to have been on guard and suspicious all along, as if you knew that I was going to kill her from the start. Why? When Lin Tian arrived here and sensed the killing formation engraved in the sea ahead, he immediately grabbed Yu Yaoshi and forced the killing formation to manifest. Throughout the entire process, he didn't seem surprised at all. It was as if he knew that she would do this from the start. This was definitely abnormal. This meant that Lin Tian had been suspecting her from the start. Or rather, it was no longer just suspicion. Lin Tian was deeply convinced that the reason she summoned Yu Yaoshi here was to kill her. This left Yu Fengyin extremely confused. She thought back to the past and felt that she hadn't given herself away in the slightest. Logically speaking, she shouldn't have been suspected at all. Yu Yaoshi also looked at Lin Tian curiously. Putting everything together, it seemed like Lin Tian had been suspecting Yu Fengyin from the start. This left her confused. She couldn't understand why Lin Tian would suspect Yu Fengyin. After Xiang Yanfeng escaped from the ancestral Lord Sea region, Yaoshi mentioned that she was ambushed. Do you still remember that? Lin Tian asked calmly. After she mentioned it, your actions betrayed you. You betrayed yourself. Yu Fengyin pondered for a moment before replying. That did happen. However, I didn't give myself away after that. In fact, I didn't even ask her about the ambush. I only praised your strength. She continued. There's no reason for you to doubt my words back then. Indeed, you didn't ask her about it, and you didn't even mention a single word about her being ambushed. Lin Tian looked at her and said, however, it was precisely this point that betrayed you. He continued, the two of you are cousins, members of the same clan. When my cousin mentioned that she was nearly killed in an ambush, you didn't show the slightest bit of shock or astonishment. You didn't even ask a single word about it. Is this normal? Clearly, this isn't normal. From that moment onwards, I began suspecting you. However, I also thought that since you two are cousins, you might not value each other that much, so you didn't pay much attention to her being ambushed. Thus, after that, I asked Yaoshi about your relationship with her. However, she said that the two of you grew up together, and your relationship was extremely close. He looked at Yu Fengyin and said, since you two are cousins and are related by blood, why didn't you ask her about the ambush at that time? The only reason is that you knew about her being ambushed from the very start. That's why you weren't surprised at all when she mentioned it. From that moment onwards, I no longer suspected you. Instead, I was certain that you were the one who wanted to kill her, Lin Tian said calmly. He said calmly. After that, you suddenly called her here, saying that you had something very important to discuss. I knew that you wanted to use this secluded place to set up all kinds of traps and erase her in one fell swoop. Yu Fengyin's complexion changed again and again, and her face turned even darker. Good! Wonderful! Very wonderful! She looked at Lin Tian with a cold gaze. You're clearly a lowly life form of the four-dimensional space, but your fighting prowess is actually so strong. To think that your mind is so sharp as well. You're really good. Never in her wildest dreams would she have thought that she would end up being exposed instead of mentioning the matter of Yu Yaoshi being ambushed. She had intentionally kept it a secret so as to not give herself away. Yu Yaoshi's face also changed slightly. It turned out that this was the reason why Lin Tian asked her about her relationship with Yu Fengyin. From the moment Lin Tian met Yu Fengyin, she didn't even bother to remember the details. However, based on these details, Lin Tian was able to find the person who wanted to kill her and her family. This made her unable to remain calm. Very strong! Very smart! Unfortunately, smart people often have short lives. Yu Fengyin's voice sounded once more. She stared coldly at Lin Tian as she ordered the 5 all-creation pinnacle experts. Kill them both! Chapter 2370. Following Yu Fengyin's words, the auras of the 5 attendants became even more intimidating. They were 5 middle-aged men, each with an ice-cold expression. One had red hair, one was dressed in gray robes, one was dressed in brown robes, one was dressed in black armor, and the last one was dressed in golden robes. The pressure of a peak all-creation expert instantly spread out in all directions, and simultaneously attacked Lin Tian and Yu Fengyin. 5 different killing lights instantly landed in front of Lin Tian. Yu Yaoxi's expression immediately changed, but she didn't show any fear. She instantly raised a powerful saint weapon, which shone brightly with holy light. Lin Tian's expression didn't change at all. His right leg lightly shook the surface of the sea, and in an instant, waves rolled. A large amount of holy light rushed up from the bottom of the sea, like a waterfall of light rushing up in reverse, and completely shattered the killing lights of the 5 middle-aged men. At the same time, the 5 middle-aged men were forced to retreat from the surface of the sea. Such a scene caused Yu Yaoxi's expression to change slightly, and the 5 middle-aged men's pupils contracted. At the same time, Yu Fengyin's expression also changed. Lin Tian's cultivation was indeed at the early Dao transformation realm, and there was no mistake about it. But now, he was able to dissolve the attacks of the 5 peak all-creation experts under her. Moreover, he was able to force all 5 of them back. That waterfall of light that rushed up caused her soul to involuntarily feel a chill. Its might was too terrifying. To be honest, the location you've chosen is really not bad. Lin Tian looked at Yu Fengyin and said. When Yu Yaoxi told him that Yu Fengyin had summoned her here to discuss an important matter, he knew that Yu Fengyin was intending to kill Yu Yaoxi. Thus, he immediately commanded the blood-devourer beasts, who had been imbued with the reincarnation art, to rush over from the bottom of the sea to investigate. It was only then that they realized that there was an extremely shocking saintly spiritual grounds in the depths of the sea. Not only that, there were countless great veins intersecting with one another. In such a place, as someone who cultivated the dragon burial scripture, he was more than capable of manipulating the dense saintly spiritual energy, and the power of the great veins to battle. And in this place, the celestial saint spirit land in the depths of the sea was extremely astonishing. In addition to the power of the endless great veins, his current early Dao transformation cultivation base, and the potential of the soul root that had been unsealed 4 times, the dragon burial scripture was enough to make him invincible under the pure sun realm. In fact, he even had a certain chance of winning against ordinary pure sun realm experts. Thus, at that time, after knowing about this, he did not make any preparations on the way here. With the power of this place, there was nothing to fear. This was because he completely did not believe that Yu Fengyin could mobilize ancestor realm experts of the 5th dimension. That was obviously impossible. Yu Fengyin stared at Lin Tian, and the shock in her eyes dissipated, replaced by ruthlessness. Kill him! Use your full strength, kill him! She had 5 peak all-creation attendants, and she did not believe that she could not suppress Lin Tian, who was only at the early Dao transformation realm. The 5 middle-aged men nodded, and the aura outside their bodies surged once again, becoming stronger than before. A lowly creature of the 4th dimension, a mere Dao transformation realm cultivator, was able to repel us. What did you do? Among them, the red-haired middle-aged man asked. His eyes were cold, and he was very curious about the sacred light that Lin Tian had summoned. Take a guess. Lin Tian was very calm. The red-haired middle-aged man's face immediately sank, and his eyes became even colder. This was a Dao refinement cultivator from the 4th dimension. Even though his battle prowess was extraordinary, he was still just a Dao refinement cultivator. Now that he was facing an all-creations cultivator, he did not show the slightest bit of respect. This made him very unhappy. There's no need to talk nonsense with him. Just kill him. The brown-robed middle-aged man spoke, and as soon as he finished speaking, he moved, and an unparalleled killing light pressed down on Lin Tian. At the same time, the red-haired middle-aged man and the other 3 middle-aged men moved as well. Although their cultivation was much higher than Lin Tian's, they did not dare to be careless. They did not intend to fight alone, and all 5 of them attacked together. All kinds of killing lights were released once again, and this time, they were even stronger than before. They completely sealed off the space around Lin Tian, including Yu Yaoxi. Lin Tian's expression did not change at all. With a slight thought, more powerful sacred light appeared from the bottom of the sea. Roar! Dragon roars shook the heavens and earth, and tens of thousands of dragons rushed out at once, each of them carrying an incomparably terrifying power. The tens of thousands of dragons were vivid and lifelike, and each of them looked as if they were real. In the blink of an eye, they shattered all the killing lights released by the 5 middle-aged men, and immediately surrounded all 5 of them, mercilessly suppressing them. Dragon Burial Realm! Pooh! 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 5 mists of blood instantly exploded, and the 5 middle-aged men were directly blown apart by this great art. Blood splattered all over the sky. Damn it! The 5 of them were shocked and furious. After all, they were peak all-creation experts, and their souls were not destroyed immediately. However, at this moment, a sense of horror rose in their hearts. They only felt that Lin Tian was too strange. He was clearly only at the early stage of Tao transformation, but he displayed such terrifying power that even peak all-creation experts like them could not resist at all. "Miss you, we won't do this anymore," one of them said, and immediately fled into the distance. At the same time, the other 4 did the same. They did not even reassemble their bodies for the time being, and quickly fled from this place. Lin Tian had attacked twice in a row, and the power he displayed caused a sense of fear to rise in their hearts. They felt that Lin Tian was too demonic, and if this continued, they would all be in trouble. Therefore, at this moment, they all chose to retreat and flee at the same time. Yu Fengyin's expression immediately became extremely ugly, and she said in shock and anger, "All of you, come back!" Lin Tian's gaze indifferently swept across the 5 people's souls. This time, hundreds of thousands of large dragons rushed up together. The second attack, Dragon Burial Realm. Hundreds of thousands of large dragons interweaved with the boundless power of the immortal Saint Spirit land at the bottom of the sea, and instantly drowned the 5 people. Unwilling screams immediately rang out, and in the next moment, silence fell. The 5 people's souls were simultaneously shattered. Such a scene caused Yu Yaoshi's expression to change again and again, and she almost froze. Originally, she was still racking her brains over how to deal with 5 peak all-creation experts, and she did not have the slightest confidence in her heart. However, she did not expect that in the blink of an eye, Lin Tian would wipe out all 5 peak all-creation experts. She really could not imagine how Lin Tian, with his early-stage Tao transformation cultivation, could mobilize such terrifying power. Yu Fengyin's face turned ghastly pale. Looking at Lin Tian, she staggered backwards. You! She had set up all kinds of sure-kill methods here, and this time, she personally took action. With 5 peak all-creation experts by her side, she felt that this time, she would definitely be able to wipe out Yu Yaoshi, and kill Lin Tian as well. After this, without Yu Yaoshi as the Holy Maiden, her family would definitely choose her as the new Holy Maiden. She was full of confidence in this. However, she did not expect that the early-stage Tao transformation Lin Tian would actually destroy all of this. Lin Tian looked at her, and with a thought, a large amount of holy spiritual light rushed up from the bottom of the sea, immediately suppressing Yu Fengyin. "I'll leave it to you," he said to Yu Yaoshi. He directly killed the 5 peak all-creation middle-aged men. However, Yu Fengyin was still a member of the Yu family. She had plotted to assassinate Yu Yaoshi time and time again, so naturally, it was better to leave it to Yu Yaoshi to deal with. Yu Yaoshi nodded and walked towards Yu Fengyin. Soon, she arrived in front of her. "Sisterine, why do you have to do this? We're clearly family, blood-related. It's just the position of Holy Maiden. Is there a need for you to do such a thing? If you want to be the Holy Maiden, I'll give it to you. It's no big deal. Shouldn't family be united and harmonious?" Hearing this, Lin Tian sighed. Yu Fengyin was so ruthless, but Yu Yaoshi still called her sisterine. Yu Fengyin was suppressed, and her holy spiritual force was completely suppressed. Her movements were also limited, but her ability to speak was not sealed. Gritting her teeth, she said, "Yu Yaoshi, if you want to kill me, then kill me. I, Yu Fengyin, accept it. Don't put on such a pretentious act. Disgusting! Yu Yaoshi's lips twitched. She wanted to say something, but in the end, she didn't say anything. Instead, she took out the protective artifact that she had summoned previously and kept euphonium within it. Taking a deep breath, she turned to Lin Tian and smiled. However, it was a forced smile. Thank you, Lin Tian. Thinking about it, Lin Tian had saved her life twice now. She was incomparably grateful to him, but at the same time, she also felt very uncomfortable. That was because the person who wanted to kill her was actually her cousin whom she had always trusted and respected. Lin Tian naturally understood how she felt. To be assassinated by a relative whom she trusted the most, it was hard for anyone to accept it. There's no need to stand on ceremony. You also said that I'm your friend. It's only right for friends to help each other. He smiled. Yu Yaoshi nodded and thanked him once more. Lin Tiantan smiled. He didn't ask Yu Yaoshi how she wanted to deal with euphonium. Instead, he looked at the bottom of the sea and said, I guess I've picked up an extraordinary opportunity here. As he said those words, the dragon inscriptions beneath his feet began to intertwine, and a divine radiance surged forth, wrapping around Yu Yaoshi and bringing her down to the depths of the sea. Soon, he brought Yu Yaoshi to the bottom of the sea. More dragon inscriptions appeared, pushing the seawater apart and forming a vacuum. The dragon inscriptions caused the paradise of Saint Spirit and countless great veins to appear simultaneously. In an instant, an incomparably dense amount of holy spiritual energy gushed out, along with some extraordinary ripples of Tao energy. Yu Yaoshi's face twitched. With her cultivation, she could tell that this was an extraordinary place. It was definitely a land of treasures that harnessed astonishing power. Let's borrow the holy spiritual energy and the Tao energy contained in this place to cultivate together. It should be enough to raise our cultivation by a notch in a short period of time. Lin Tian now. The paradise of Saint Spirit and countless great veins intertwined here, gathering an incredible amount of holy spiritual energy and Tao energy. To cultivators, the terrain here could be considered a natural treasure of heaven and earth. Yu Yaoshi's eyes glimmered, but she shook her head and rejected Lin Tian's offer. I'll pass. If I were to cultivate with you, I'd be splitting the holy spiritual energy and Tao energy in this place, which would greatly reduce the effectiveness of each of us. After that, I won't be able to reach the manifestation realm, and you won't be able to reach the middle stage of the Tao conversion realm. Chapter 2371. It's fine. Let's cultivate together. Lin Tian smiled. He knew what Yu Yaoshi was thinking, so he invited her again. No, I'll stand guard for you. You can cultivate by yourself and reach the intermediate stage of Tao transformation first. Yu Yaoshi was firm. Lin Tian still wanted to say something, but in the end, he swallowed his words. All right. He didn't force it. After bidding farewell to Yu Yaoshi, he sat cross-legged in the middle of the treasured land and began cultivating. Even though he was cultivating, he still had absolute control over the outside world. Moreover, he trusted Yu Yaoshi very much, so he didn't need to worry about her. 1. He circulated the Reincarnation Heart Sutra, an incomparable holy spiritual energy immediately surged into his body. At the same time, fragments of Tao laws and Tao energy of heaven and earth also surged toward him. In an instant, his essence, energy, and spirit began to rise at an extremely fast speed. Yu Yaoshi stood by the side, observing the surroundings and standing guard for him. Just like that, the days passed. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. After 3 days, the holy spiritual energy and Tao energy of heaven and earth that had accumulated in the celestial Saint Spirit land and the countless great veins were almost completely depleted. An extremely powerful fluctuation surged out of his body, creating gusts of holy wind. In the next instant, he opened his eyes. After a slight pause, he stood up. Previously, he had mobilized more than half of the energy gathered in the celestial Saint Spirit land and the countless great veins to kill the 5 peak all-creation experts. Now, After 3 days of cultivating with the remaining holy spiritual energy and Tao energy of heaven and earth, he had reached the intermediate stage of Tao transformation from the early stage to the intermediate stage of Tao transformation. His strength in all aspects had increased significantly. After a few more years, this place should have accumulated even more holy spiritual energy and Tao energy of heaven and earth. He muttered to himself. He had only absorbed the energy contained within this land of treasures to cultivate. He did not destroy this land of treasures. After that, this land of treasures would continue to absorb the Holy Spirit Qi and Tao energy between heaven and earth and gather here, becoming strong again. He called out to Yu Yaoshi, and the two rose from the bottom of the sea. Soon, they returned to the surface of the sea. Lin Tian, I'm sorry, but I might not be able to follow you to the Ancestor Lord's immortal abode. At this moment, Yu Yaoshi spoke up with an apologetic look on her face. With a worried look in her eyes, she said, It's impossible to determine whether Big Sis Yin's matter is only related to her alone or whether it's only related to her position as the Holy Maiden. If it's related to Big Uncle and the others, as well as the position of the clan head, it'll be very troublesome. I have to bring her back to the clan to investigate this matter. Hearing this, Lin Tian nodded. Your decision is very correct. If Yu Fengyin was the only one involved in the matter of Yu Fengyin, it would still be fine if she wanted to eliminate Yu Yaoshi and become the Holy Maiden for her own vanity. However, if her father was involved in the matter of the Yu family seizing the position of the clan head, that would be troublesome. It could lead to internal strife within the family. If it wasn't handled properly, it could cause a huge commotion within the family. And Yu Yaoshi's worries weren't unfounded. After all, Yu Fengyin had previously mentioned the matter of her father, and Yu Yaoshi's father vying for the position of the clan head. Rather than going to the Ancestor Lord's immortal abode to search for treasures, it was better for her to return to the clan to deal with this matter. Yu Yaoshi nodded. You must take care of yourself. I hope that you'll be able to obtain all of the artifacts in the Ancestor Lord's immortal abode. After which, she paused for a moment before telling Lin Tian where the Yu family was founded. After which, she took out a jade inscribed with the Yu family's insignia and passed it to Lin Tian. I'll look for you after dealing with the matters in the clan. If you have any needs in the future, feel free to come to the Yu family. All right. Lin Tian nodded as he accepted the jade inscribed by Yu Yaoshi. Seeing Lin Tian accepting the jade inscribed by her, Yu Yaoshi smiled. For a moment she looked just like a little girl. I'll be leaving now. She waved at Lin Tian and didn't stay for too long. She directly left, heading out of the Ancestral Lord's Sea domain. Lin Tian watched as Yu Yaoshi left the Ancestral Lord's Sea domain until she disappeared from his sight. Then, he turned his head to look in the direction of the massive island from before. Stepping on the sponge, he headed there. Traveling on the surface of the sea, he didn't seem to be walking at a fast pace, but in truth, he was able to traverse vast distances in a flash. It didn't take long for him to return to the massive island from before. Outside the massive island, all sorts of natural phenomena of destruction could be seen. Walking forward, he stepped onto the island through the gaps. As soon as he stepped onto the island, the aura of death immediately surged towards him, causing him to frown slightly. This was because from the outside, the island was clearly filled with tall and straight ancient trees. He thought that the Holy Spirit Qi inside should be very dense, but he didn't expect that not only was there no Holy Spirit Qi inside, but there was also a very dense aura of death, as if it was an island of death. However, he didn't mind it at all. Spreading out his divine sense, he quickly extended it far away. Then, he walked towards the center of the island. Roar! A ferocious roar rang out as a powerful ferocious beast pounced towards him. It was more than 3 zhang tall, and its body was covered in thick green scales. Lin Tian continued walking forward, ignoring the ferocious beast. The natural aura around his body sent it flying with a bang. About an hour later, he arrived at the center of the island. In front of him was an extremely majestic sacred mountain. It looked as if it had flown in from the heavens, making him feel small and insignificant. At the bottom of the sacred mountain, there was a stone door, but it was already damaged beyond recognition. Without a doubt, the Seven Treasures' ancestor lord's immortal manor was located within this majestic sacred mountain. The stone door was the entrance. It was probably destroyed by the cultivators who came here before. Without any hesitation, he took a step forward and stepped into the sacred mountain through the broken stone door. Behind the stone door was a cave path that was 3 zhang tall and 3 zhang wide. He followed the path into the sacred mountain. As he stepped forward, the echoes of his footsteps echoed in the cave. As he followed the path, the space gradually became wider and wider. Moreover, there were very powerful saint energy fluctuations and order auras gradually coming from the front. It seemed that there were powerful cultivators fighting in front of him. Suddenly, his footsteps quickened. Not long after, an extremely spacious area appeared in front of him. It was like a miniature world. Many cultivators had come here, and the weakest was at the profound heaven realm. All of them were staring at the center of the space, where 3 figures were fighting fiercely. Their saint auras were very frightening. Lin Tian arrived and recognized the 3 people at a glance. They were the Heaven Induction Divine Temple's God's Son Yuan Ziqing, the 100 Saints Ancient Pavilion's God's Son Luo Sais, and the Holy Maiden of the All Beginnings Palace, Luo Xian. The reason for their fight was a treasured halberd. The halberd was about 7 feet long, and it was covered with densely packed ancient runes that intertwined with dazzling light. It was obviously extraordinary. Just by looking at it from afar, one could feel a very terrifying saint aura lingering around the halberd. It made one's heart palpitate. It was clearly a 5th-dimensional treasure. Lin Tian looked at the 7-foot halberd and couldn't help but narrow his eyes. Was this one of the legendary 5th-dimensional treasured weapons of the 7 Treasures' ancestor? The 7-star halberd? Rumble! Intense saint energy vibrated. Yuan Ziqing, Luo Sais, and Luo Xian were surrounded by dazzling saint light. Each of their moves was extremely profound and shocking. The 7-star halberd is a top-notch 5th-dimensional treasure. I wonder which one of the 3 will be able to obtain it in the end. Do you even need to think about it? It will definitely be the Holy Maiden of the All Beginnings Palace. After all, the other party controls the laws of the 5th dimension. That's right. It's a little strange. The 3 of them have been fighting fiercely for a full quarter of an hour. As long as Luo Xian uses the law of all beginnings, she should be able to suppress Yuan Ziqing and Luo Sais in the blink of an eye. But why hasn't she used it yet? Oh, I heard that Luo Xian is very arrogant. Now, she probably wants to defeat Yuan Ziqing and Luo Sais without using the law of all beginnings. She wants to prove to the world that she's brilliant and peerless. As for Yuan Ziqing and Luo Sais, they are the God's Sons of the Heaven Leading Temple and the 100 Sage Ancient Pavilion respectively. Naturally, they have their own pride. The 2 of them are the first to charge at the 7-star halberd, while Luo Xian is behind them. Thus, the 2 of them naturally can't retreat under such circumstances. Otherwise, it would be too embarrassing. Perhaps they want to personally test how powerful Luo Xian's law of all beginnings is. That makes sense. Around them, some cultivators were discussing as they watched Yuan Ziqing, Luo Sais, and Luo Xian's battle without blinking. Say, now that they're fighting fiercely and restraining each other, do you think it's possible for them to take the 7-star halberd? Someone whispered and asked his companions nearby. As soon as he said this, the cultivators nearby all looked over. You want to try? Yuan Ziqing, Luo Sais, and Luo Xian. Who can compete with them in this place? If anyone dares to have any thoughts about the 7-star halberd while they're fighting fiercely, they'll definitely attack at the same time and turn into ashes in an instant. These people said. The person who spoke earlier immediately became embarrassed. After thinking about it, he realized that his question was a little silly. At this time, a slightly chubby cultivator nearby opened his eyes wide and looked at the northeast corner. That place, what's wrong? Beside him, the other cultivators were curious about this person's reaction. They all followed his gaze to the northeast corner. Then, all of them were shocked and widened their eyes. In the northeast corner, Lin Tian walked at a steady pace, completely ignoring the fierce battle between Yuan Ziqing, Luo Sai's, and Lu Aoxian. He walked straight toward the seven-star halberd at the center of this space. He felt that this halberd was extraordinary. If he could hold it in his hands, it would definitely be of great use to him in the future. It would also be of great use to the development of his branch of the immortal court in the fifth dimension. Chapter 2372. That man. Seeing that Lin Tian was heading straight for the seven-star halberd while Lu Aoxian, Yuan Ziqing and Luo Sai's were fighting, all the cultivators in the area were shocked. Someone dared to take the seven-star halberd while Lu Aoxian, Yuan Ziqing and Luo Sai's were fighting. Wasn't he looking for death? Gradually, some of the cultivators could not help but be shocked when they saw Lin Tian's face. It's him! He's the one who killed the third young master of the Xiang family and forced Xiang Yanfeng to escape. Someone couldn't help but say. Not long ago, outside the Ancestor Sea domain, Lin Tian killed the third young master of the Xiang family, Xiang Qingyi, and then fought with the divine son of the Xiang family, Xiang Yanfeng. In the end, he forced Xiang Yanfeng to escape. Many cultivators saw that and recognized Lin Tian. Lin Tian didn't care about their reactions. He didn't change his pace and headed straight for the halberd. Almost at the same time, Lu Aoxian, Yuan Ziqing and Luo Sai's noticed him. Their eyes were cold. They waved their hands at the same time, and three sharp beams of light headed straight for Lin Tian. In the blink of an eye, the three beams of light landed in front of Lin Tian. Lin Tian's pace didn't change at all. At this moment, it was as if he was stepping on the nodes of heaven and earth. None of the three beams of light hit him. They all passed by him. Lu Aoxian and the other two narrowed their eyes. They didn't hold back when they threw out the beams of light, but Lin Tian dodged them all easily. "Get lost!" Yuan Ziqing said. A sword energy that was more than 3 feet long appeared. It was mixed with the aura of order and headed straight for Lin Tian's head. This sword energy was much more powerful than the previous beams of light. It landed in front of Lin Tian's forehead in the blink of an eye. Lin Tian flicked his finger. A beam of sword light flew out and shattered the incoming sword energy. At the same time, his footsteps did not change as he continued to walk towards the seven-star halberd in the center. This scene shocked all the cultivators present. The sword aura that Yuan Ziqing had just slashed out was not simple. It caused many of the older generation figures present to feel their hearts palpitate. They could clearly feel that an ordinary peak Dao transformation expert would definitely be instantly annihilated by that sword aura. However, Lin Tian had wiped out that sword aura with a flick of his finger. Yuan Ziqing's eyes narrowed. After that, the light in his eyes turned cold. He attacked again, manifesting divine chains of order. The divine chains of order seemed to have a mind of their own as they shot toward Lin Tian like ferocious flying serpents. At the same time, Luo Sai's also made his move. Light of order fell on Lin Tian. Lu Aoxian's expression was cold. She waved her hand and a large amount of holy light flew out. It was unknown how much stronger it was than the previous beams of light. It swept toward Lin Tian along with Yuan Ziqing and Luo Sai's power of order. The three of them stopped fighting for now. After all, Lin Tian was heading straight for the seven-star halberd. They naturally could not ignore Lin Tian and continue fighting. The attacks of the three, the divine chains of order, the light of order, and the holy light, landed in front of Lin Tian in the blink of an eye. Lin Tian's expression did not change. His samsara domain appeared outside his body. Their attacks collided with the samsara divine territory outside his body and were all blocked by the samsara divine territory. Yuan Ziqing, Luo Sai's, and Lu Aoxian's eyes narrowed. Their attacks had become even more powerful. They attacked Lin Tian at the same time, but they were still easily blocked by Lin Tian. "To be able to force Xiang Yanfeng to flee, you are indeed not simple," Yuan Ziqing said coldly. The light of order around him suddenly became dozens of times stronger. He appeared before Lin Tian in an instant. The unparalleled power of order directly pressed down on Lin Tian. Luo Xian and Luo Sai's appeared before him almost at the same time. They both drew out sharp beams of light. Do you think it's that easy to steal? Luo Sai said coldly. Luo Xian did not say anything. Her eyes were cold. Her murderous light seemed to be able to suppress everything, sealing off all the space around them. The divine patterns of order appeared outside Lin Tian's body. They weakened everything. Together with the samsara domain, they blocked all the attacks from the three of them. At the same time, the samsara god-slaying technique was performed silently. It swept toward the three of them with sword chi that filled the sky. In an instant, Yuan Zigong and Luo Sai's both trembled and let out muffled groans. Then, they were directly penetrated by the sword lights that filled the sky. For a moment, they were sent flying hundreds of feet away, splashing blood in the air. Luo Xian was surrounded by divine light. She quickly retreated, shattering all the sword chi that came at her. The expressions of all the cultivators in this place changed. Yuan Ziqing, Luo Sai's, and Luo Xian were the divine sons and saintesses of the three top orthodoxies. They were all divine sons and saintesses of the same generation. They all attacked Lin Tian at the same time. However, the result was like this. Yuan Ziqing and Luo Sai's were severely injured and flew away. Luo Xian was not injured, but she was forced back dozens of feet. Luo Xian looked at Lin Tian. Her cold eyes could not help but narrow. She frowned at this moment. At the same time, Lin Tian stopped and looked at Luo Xian. You have mastered the law of all beginnings. You are indeed powerful. Just then, he had used the reincarnation god-slaying technique, a technique that attacked the soul silently. Combined with the sword rays, he had severely injured Yuan Ziqing and Luo Sai's in the blink of an eye. However, Luo Xian had blocked his reincarnation god-slaying technique and shattered all the sword rays in the sky. This was not simple. It was the first time someone in the same realm could block his samsara god-slaying technique. His words were calm. This made Luo Xian's face darken. She clearly felt like she was being underestimated. At the same time, with two loud booms, Yuan Ziqing and Luo Sai's rushed back from hundreds of feet away. They had both recovered from their injuries. However, they did not look good. They were the divine sons of the heaven-leading godly palace and the 100th Saint Ancient Pavilion. However, they were injured by Lin Tian in front of everyone. This was too humiliating. The two of them looked at Lin Tian, and their eyes turned cold at this moment. There was an obvious killing intent in their eyes. Boom! The light of order surged. At this moment, the two of them activated their divine arts of order at the same time. Tao light manifested as all sorts of divine arts intertwined with one another, pressing towards Lin Tian step by step. The space in all directions was distorted inch by inch. Now, it's best if you don't do anything, Lin Tian said calmly. Almost at the same time, Yuan Ziqing and Luo Sai's trembled. The turbulent order outside their bodies became chaotic. They both coughed up blood. In an instant, both of their expressions changed. What did you do? Yuan Ziqing gritted his teeth. At that moment, the Saint Qi outside their bodies became extremely chaotic. The flow of Saint Qi was gradually frozen. Lin Tian did not say anything. He glanced at Luo Xian and walked toward the seven-star halberd. Just now, the sword lights that filled the sky were mixed with miniature versions of the four symbols seal. Along with the sword force that pierced through Yuan Ziqing and Luo Sai's, it entered their bodies and entered their saint energy. For a period of time after that, it would greatly solidify the flow of saint energy in their bodies. During this period of time, if the two of them were to forcefully circulate their saint energy, they would immediately suffer a huge backlash due to the chaotic solidification of their saint energy. Yuan Ziqing and Luo Sai's faces turned ugly. Their saint qi surged, and they were about to attack again. However, in the next moment, as they activated their saint qi, the two of them trembled and coughed up blood again. Their bodies were in great pain. This made their faces even uglier. They did not dare to activate their saint qi. At that moment, they knew that for a short period of time, they had lost their ability to fight. If they forced their saint qi to move, it would be equivalent to suicide. The two of them watched as Lin Tian walked toward the seven-star halberd. They could not help but clench their fists. In fact, when Luo Xian came to this place to attack, they already knew that they would not be able to take the seven-star halberd. This was because Luo Xian controlled the law of all beginnings. That kind of power had absolute crushing pressure. Once Luo Xian used that kind of power, they would not be able to block it. They would definitely lose in the end. However, they did not retreat. They could not retreat when Luo Xian attacked. At least, they had to try the power of the law of all beginnings. After that, even if they were defeated by Luo Xian with the law of all beginnings, it would not be embarrassing for them. After all, the law of all beginnings was one of the 5 fundamental powers of the 5th dimension. It was extremely terrifying. But now, they were defeated by Lin Tian, who came from the 4-dimensional world. Not only that, but he had also defeated them so easily. Moreover, Lin Tian's cultivation was actually a stage lower than theirs, and this caused them to feel extremely uncomfortable. They were living beings from the 5th dimension and were the direct descendants of the top orthodoxy in the 5th dimension. Their bloodline dimension was far superior to living beings from the 4th dimension, and their cultivation base was also higher. Under such circumstances, how could they lose to someone from the 4th dimension? How was this possible? How was this possible? Even though they already knew that Lin Tian had defeated Xiang Zifeng, who was at the same cultivation level as them, at this moment, when such a thing happened to them, they were unwilling to believe it no matter what. It was difficult for them to accept it. Lin Tian did not pay attention to them. His footsteps did not change at all as he continued to walk toward the 7-star halberd. Clang! The sound of the sword clanged as a large patch of holy light flashed past. It was as if the sky was pressing down. Lin Tian moved to the side, dodging the holy light. He tilted his head and looked at Luo Xian. Luo Xian's eyes were cold. With a sense of pride that came from her bones, she walked toward Lin Tian step by step. Around her, strands of purple light circled around her. Immediately, all the light of ways appeared and surged towards her. They danced around her as if they were bowing down and worshipping her. This is the first time I have used this kind of power on the battlefield. I did not expect it to be against a creature from the 4th dimension. Chapter 2373. Surrounded by purple holy light, Luo Xian stepped forward. An extremely primitive aura emanated from her body. All the light of Tao jumped around her. Strands of it submitted to her. At that moment, all the cultivators here couldn't help but tremble. This is... At that moment, without thinking, all the cultivators guessed that this was the 5th dimension law that Luo Xian mastered. All beginnings. Even Yuan Ziqing, the divine prince of Tianyin, and Luo Sais, the divine prince of 100 saints, were shocked. Lin Tian's eyes shone with faint light. At that moment, Luo Xian's aura was much stronger than before. In other words, it wasn't a matter of much stronger anymore. She was obviously a different person. It was almost the same as when he performed fate and reincarnation. He looked at her. He didn't go to the 7-star halberd anymore. Luo Xian wasn't someone who could be dealt with so easily. Not bad. Come! At that moment, Luo Xian made him feel pressured. Even so, his expression was still calm. Luo Xian's eyes were cold. Like an aloof fairy, she walked toward Lin Tian step by step, surrounded by purple holy light. As she walked, the space around her seemed to have turned back to its original state, twisting with strands of light. Lin Tian stood where he was quietly. Suddenly, he stepped forward and moved several feet away. Almost at the same time, Luo Xian suddenly appeared where he was standing. The purple light around her annihilated everything there, turning space into the most primitive point to shorten the distance to 0, reaching the destination in an instant. His eyes flickered. It's like teleportation. If it was before, Luo Xian's movement would have made him suffer a lot. He might have even had a hard time understanding how she did it. That wasn't in the category of speed. It wasn't pure teleportation either. But now, after unlocking 4 layers of the soul root, everything in the world became extremely clear in his vision. The Tao in the world wasn't as complicated as before. Now, in just a short moment, just a simple glance, he understood how Lu Aoxian suddenly appeared beside him. Turning space into a primitive point? Then, what does that mean? What is he talking about? Who cares what he is talking about? Lu Aoxian used the law of all beginnings to attack, but that guy, he dodged it easily. Some cultivators were puzzled, while others were shocked. Lu Aoxian stared at Lin Tian in disbelief. She had indeed used the law of all beginnings to shift the distance between her and Lin Tian into a point of origin before shifting it. Then, in the blink of an eye, she had restored the point of origin to its original state. This was supposed to be a killing move, and no one in the same realm as her should be able to avoid it. She had even used this move to kill a powerful early-stage all-creations cultivator. However, not only did Lin Tian dodge her attack in an instant, he even saw through how she moved. This made her heart tremble slightly. Again. It was also at this moment that Lin Tian's voice sounded. Lu Aoxian's face darkened, and her eyes became even colder. Lin Tian was obviously looking down on her. She was the current saintess of the godly palace of all beginnings. She was someone who had mastered the law of the 5th dimension. Lin Tian actually didn't put her in his eyes at all. To her, this was something she could not tolerate. "You're not coming?" Lin Tian said. "If you're not coming, then I'll go over." As he spoke, he stepped forward towards Lu Aoxian. Strands of holy light shot out from his eyes. Clang! The sound of the sword was ear-piercing. Behind him, thousands of rays of sword light appeared, turning into a rain of swords that slashed towards Lu Aoxian. Lu Aoxian's eyes turned cold. The law of all beginnings moved, and all of Lin Tian's sword light disappeared. They were all turned back to the original point of origin. "Don't be so arrogant!" Her voice was cold. The law of all beginnings surged, immediately sealing the surroundings and pressing towards Lin Tian from every corner. Lin Tian used the Taichu divine domain to protect himself, and he also used all of his other treasured skills. However, it only lasted for an instant. When the various treasured techniques he used encountered the law of all beginnings, they immediately disappeared without a trace. As long as they came into contact with even a tiny bit of the law of all beginnings, they would be reduced to 0 and disappear. "Very strong indeed," he muttered to himself. As he said that, he moved dozens of feet away. A purple ray of divine light of all beginnings landed there. With a sizzle, the ground there, along with the space, turned into nothingness and disappeared. Lu Aoxian's eyes were cold. She was like a fairy walking in the mortal world. Surrounded by the purple law of all beginnings, she approached Lin Tian step by step. More and more rays of divine light of all beginnings appeared. They pressed down on Lin Tian from all directions like the divine rain of all beginnings. Lin Tian faced it with the 5 thunders sky-shaking spell. Black thunderbolts kept striking his opponent, but they disappeared in an instant. He faced it with the seal of 4 symbols. It was his senior brother's technique. Even his master, the human king, had praised it before. It had endless potential and could seal everything. However, even such a powerful technique disappeared the instant it came into contact with the 10,000 dawn divine light. Sizzle! His reincarnation divine domain was touched by a trace of divine light of all beginnings. He stepped back. This time, he moved hundreds of feet away. The reincarnation dominion was a protective spell that he created himself. It was a perfect match for his reincarnation origin. To him, it was an absolute defense. But now, it was easily destroyed by Lu Aoxian, who was in the same plane as him. "Now you will pay the price for your arrogance and conceit," Lu Aoxian said coldly. The divine light of all beginnings turned into a rain of all beginnings. It was densely packed and swept towards Lin Tian. Lin Tian's eyes flickered. He threw out a large amount of reincarnation sword and then used the reincarnation step to dodge. He had the reincarnation step, but he didn't use it right now. He was purely dodging. In his eyes, rays of light intertwined. He captured Lu Aoxian's divine light of all beginnings. As he dodged them, he quickly sensed and analyzed them. Sizzle! 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 Soft sounds rang out one after another. As the law of all beginnings passed through this space, everything disappeared. Lin Tian used the reincarnation step to dodge. He was so fast that he left many afterimages in this space. That person, is being suppressed. All the techniques he used are useless. This is the law of the fifth dimension, the power of all beginnings. In this space, all the cultivators were shocked. Everyone here had seen how powerful Lin Tian was. He had easily defeated the divine son of the Heaven Attraction Temple and the saint of the 100 Saints' ancient pavilion. But now, he was forced to dodge by Lu Aoxian's law of all beginnings. She can turn everything back to the beginning. If the difference in cultivation isn't that big, then she's definitely invincible. Some of the older cultivators exclaimed. Once the law of all beginnings was used, ordinary power would be reduced to zero in the blink of an eye. How could anyone resist it? Only the other fifth-dimensional laws, as well as the stronger sixth-dimensional laws and seventh-dimensional laws, would be able to deal with her power, someone said. At the same time, the divine son of the Heaven Attraction Temple, Yuan Ziqing, and the saint of the 100 Saints' ancient pavilion, Luo Sais, were all shocked. The law of all beginnings was too powerful. Even the divine sons of top orthodoxies like them couldn't help but feel helpless. Boom! Saint energy intertwined, and the law of all beginnings was vast and mighty. They intertwined in this space, pulsating. Lu Aoxian stood in this space, surrounded by the law of all beginnings. At this moment, he was like a supreme deity, suppressing everything. Lin Tian dodged with the samsara steps and used all kinds of other grand arts to interfere. Wisps of light flickered in his eyes. In the blink of an eye, 2 hours had passed. 2 hours had passed. At this time, the light in his eyes became thicker, and there was a faint purple light flashing. You're pretty fast. Lu Aoxian's expression was cold. At this moment, the law of all beginnings outside his body boiled, forming the immortal river of all beginnings. It suppressed everything and covered Lin Tian. Try dodging again. The immortal river of all beginnings instantly pressed down. The law of all beginnings surrounded everything. There was no space to dodge at all. Lin Tian's gaze was calm, but the purple light in his eyes became a bit brighter. Then let's try. As he spoke, he raised his hand. Purple light flashed and tore open the immortal river of all beginnings. He stepped out. At the same time, he waved his hand. A purple blade sliced through the air and approached Lu Aoxian instantly. Lu Aoxian's expression changed. She quickly dodged 3 meters away. In the next second, the small space where she was just standing turned into nothingness and disappeared completely. That is? No way? That looks like... At this place, all the cultivators' expressions changed. Yuan Ziqing, the deity of the Heaven Guide Temple, and Luo Sais, the deity of the 100 Saints' ancient pavilion, were the same. Their powerful physical bodies shook violently. Lu Aoxian's expression changed the most. She no longer had the cold arrogance from before. You! Impossible! Just now, the purple light outside Lin Tian's body and the purple blade he threw at her were obviously of the same origin as her power. That was obviously the law of all beginnings. You also know the law of all beginnings? She looked at Lin Tian. Why didn't I sense it before? She knew the law of all beginnings, and her cultivation was higher than Lin Tian's. If Lin Tian also knew the law of all beginnings, then there was no way she didn't sense it before. She definitely would have sensed it before. However, when she faced Lin Tian before, she didn't have the slightest feeling that Lin Tian knew the law of all beginnings. She couldn't figure it out and understand it. Then, in the next moment, she seemed to have thought of something. Her expression changed drastically, and she couldn't help but tremble slightly. You used my law of all beginnings to control it? Her eyes twitched uncontrollably. Lin Tian looked at her calmly. Faint purple light intertwined in his eyes. Strands of purple light floated out of his body. I just learned it. It's not pure yet. Practice with me, he said. As soon as he finished speaking, countless purple blades appeared and slashed at Lu Aoxian. Chapter 2374. Waves of purple blades sliced through the air, landing before Lu Aoxian in the blink of an eye. Lu Aoxian's expression was ugly. She clenched her teeth, and the all-beginning's holy light around her boiled like flames. It turned into a terrifying waterfall, rushing toward Lin Tian. With a poof, Lin Tian's purple blades were instantly shattered. Then, Lu Aoxian's waterfall like all beginnings holy light continued to press down on Lin Tian. Lin Tian stepped forward casually, leaving behind a purple afterimage with each step. He raised his hand and threw out a simple punch. Purple precepts of all beginnings intertwined at the tip of his fist. In terms of quantity, it was far less than Lu Aoxian's all beginnings waterfall. However, its quality seemed to be much more powerful. It was able to break through the surface of the waterfall with one simple punch. Again, he said. As he spoke, he took a simple step forward. Purple radiance interweaved within his eyes. The all-beginning laws around his body gradually became more powerful. Lu Aoxian quickly strengthened the law of all beginnings. The same purple light appeared and clashed with Lin Tian. At that moment, the two powers of the same nature and origin clashed, turning the space back to its original state. He actually, using Lu Aoxian's law of all beginnings, he only needed 2 hours. 2 hours, 2 hours, is he even human? All of the cultivators in this place were filled with astonishment. From Lu Aoxian's words, they all knew that Lin Tian didn't control the law of all beginnings before. It was because Lu Aoxian had taken out the law of all beginnings and comprehended it while studying it. That was how he managed to control this power. This shocked all the cultivators. They all felt their souls grow cold, as if they were about to be frozen. Lu Aoxian, the current saintess of the All Beginnings Divine Palace, was known as a once-in-a-lifetime genius. She had terrifying potential. Using the various knowledge about the law of all beginnings left behind by the Divine Palace's ancestor, she finally mastered the law of all beginnings after more than a decade of seclusion. This shocked the entire fifth dimension. Yet now, Lin Tian had only used 2 hours to comprehend the law of all beginnings from Lu Aoxian. Then, he was able to control this power in battle. How terrifying was that? Didn't he come from the fourth dimension? How could there be such a terrifying person in such a low-level world? This is impossible. Someone couldn't help but tremble. Even people as strong as Yuan Ziqing and Luo's size of the 100 Sacred Ancient Pavilion were astonished. Boom! 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 The void rumbled as the purple divine light of all beginnings collided continuously in this space. Everywhere it passed, everything dissipated. In the blink of an eye, 15 minutes passed. It's about time, Lin Tian spoke. He flicked his finger, and the immortal river of all beginnings surged out. The immortal river of all beginnings had a terrifying aura. It instantly shattered Lu Aoxian's law of all beginnings. Then, an air vortex appeared. It intertwined with shocking power. With a bang, Lu Aoxian was sent flying. The law of all beginnings. He's surpassed Lu Aoxian. All the cultivators in the space of all beginnings trembled again. At this moment, everyone could clearly feel that Lin Tian's mastery of the law of all beginnings had surpassed Lu Aoxian by leaps and bounds. Is he really human? Some young cultivators trembled. Just by watching Lu Aoxian's immortal law of all beginnings, he was able to master this power in just 2 hours. Then, he familiarized himself with it in less than 15 minutes. He was far more powerful than Lu Aoxian. Was that something a human could do? Lin Tian glanced at Lu Aoxian. Ignoring the cultivator's shock, he walked toward the seven-star halberd again. After unsealing the 4 seals on his soul root, his current understanding of heaven and earth was completely different from before. Apart from the complete reincarnation cycle, he could understand the essence of all other das and principles in an extremely short period of time. Boom! The purple divine light vibrated and attacked from behind. The law of all beginnings reached him in the blink of an eye. With a flick of his finger, the same all-beginning divine light swept out, obliterating the all-beginning laws in the blink of an eye. Not far away, Lu Aoxian had steadied herself and was walking back. "Don't leave!" She clenched her teeth and glared at Lin Tian. Her expression was extremely ugly. Countless years had passed since the founding of the All-Beginnings Divine Palace. Apart from the All-Beginnings Primogenitor, she was the second person to master this power after more than 10 years of seclusion with the help of the law of all beginnings left behind by the All-Beginnings Primogenitor. She proved her shocking potential to the entire 5th dimension, and was hailed as the #1 genius in the last 1,000,000 years. That was her pride. But now, Lin Tian, who came from the 4-dimensional world, had mastered this power in just 2 hours by watching her use the law of all beginnings. Then, in less than 15 minutes, he had mastered the law of all beginnings. His mastery of the law of all beginnings had far surpassed hers. What was this? With the help of the All Beginnings Primogenitor's understanding of the law of all beginnings, she had spent more than 10 years to master this power. Yet Lin Tian had mastered it in just 2 hours. Her pride was shattered in an instant. She looked at Lin Tian. With a boom, the law of all beginnings outside her body surged even more violently, as if it was going to return everything to its original state. All the cultivators here felt their hearts palpitate. Many of them quickly retreated, afraid that they would be affected. Lin Tian tilted his head and looked at Lu Aoxian. "Give up. There's no need to continue. The outcome has already been decided." Lu Aoxian clenched her teeth and clenched her fists. The law of all beginnings outside her body became even more terrifying, shaking the surroundings. "I didn't lose! I didn't!" she yelled. Lin Tian looked at her. "You're like a stubborn little girl." With that, he flicked his finger again. A purple light instantly fell before Lu Aoxian. With a hiss, the law of all beginnings outside Lu Aoxian's body was annihilated immediately. Even her saint power was suppressed. After a pause, he flicked his finger for the 3rd time. Another purple light flew out and sank into Lu Aoxian's forehead. "Controlling it has something to do with you. Here's something for you," he said to Lu Aoxian. After a pause, he said, "Don't look down on others so much in the future. There's always someone better than you. That's what the ancient sages once said. Even the commoners know that. So, it's better to be peaceful." Lu Aoxian's eyes always carried a sense of superiority, as if she was looking down on others. She was too arrogant. However, that wasn't a huge sin. He wouldn't kill her right away. Just now, the purple light he shot into Lu Aoxian's forehead contained his understanding and comprehension of the law of all beginnings. It also contained a bit of his will. It was clear and easy to understand. He believed that it would be of great use to Lu Aoxian. He was thinking that if Lu Aoxian continued to be so arrogant, her personality might gradually become twisted in the future. Now, he could give her some advice and hints so that she could restrain her arrogance. That might not be a bad thing. With that, he took one last look at Lu Aoxian. Then, he turned around and walked toward the 7-star halberd again. At the same time, Lu Aoxian was completely stunned. Then, her gaze wavered. No matter how much she didn't want to admit it, she had indeed lost in the battle against Lin Tian. She had been completely and utterly defeated. Under such circumstances, even if Lin Tian wanted to kill her, she wouldn't be surprised at all. However, Lin Tian didn't kill her. Instead, he sent a spiritual brand into her mind. It contained all sorts of essences of the law of all beginnings. In just an instant, it made the law of all beginnings inside her much stronger. The essence of this knowledge was much more profound than the experience of the 10,000 beginnings laws left behind by their divine palace's primogenitor. At that moment, she was stunned. She stood where she was in a daze, staring at Lin Tian in a daze. It was also at this moment that Lin Tian appeared before the 7-star halberd. No one dared to stop him. He grabbed the halberd. However, in the next moment, when his hand was an inch away from the halberd, a circle of holy light appeared around the halberd. With a bang, he was knocked 10 meters away. What? What's going on? At this place, all the cultivators were still shocked by how easily Lin Tian had defeated Lu Aoxian. Seeing this scene, they couldn't help but be moved. The halberd had knocked Lin Tian away. Lin Tian steadied himself 10 meters away. He looked at the halberd again and frowned. A protective barrier? After a pause, he came before the halberd again. This time, holy light surged out of his body. He grabbed at the halberd again. There was a loud bang. This time, after using his majestic Saint Chi, he was sent flying more than 8 feet away. A 5th dimension level barrier. After 2 attempts, he could tell that the barrier around the 7-star halberd was definitely of the 5th dimension level. It didn't have any killing power, but it could effectively prevent others from taking away the halberd. Even a 5th dimension expert would find it hard to break through. If one tried to break through this barrier by force, the greater the amount of energy used, the greater the backlash would be. Looking at the halberd from 20 meters away, a faint light flashed through his eyes. Speaking of which, why was this halberd placed here? He muttered to himself. He could tell that this place was not a treasure trove, nor was it a tomb. Logically speaking, the 7 Treasures ancestral lord would not have placed one of his 7 treasures artifacts here under normal circumstances. However, the holy halberd was indeed placed here. Moreover, a powerful barrier had been specially placed around the holy halberd. This was clearly a little unusual, and it made him feel strange. His eyes narrowed. He stopped at this place for a moment. Then, he stopped thinking about it and didn't continue to take the halberd. Instead, he walked along a path, heading toward the center of this ancient mountain. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.